Well, hey, folks, we are live. All right, we're gonna do some more cartography for the Eberron adventure that we've been designing here on stream for the past 100 and how many sessions? Hold on, let me check my signal here and see what we signal here. See, oh boy, 132 sessions. this thing is coming along, y'all. So yeah, we're going to continue building that. We are working on cartography for the beginning Act 1 map that the characters get to by just kind of stumbling in and off the street into the adventure, if that's the approach that they take. I'm going to take a moment here to boost my signal, just do a shout out across the internets for folks. And then we'll get started. So this book cover that you're looking at, I built around episode 40 of this playlist that we're on episode 134 on. So let's see. Here's my intro. My name is Phil Kearney. Hey, I create role-playing game supplements that I publish online as PDFs. Currently, I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that I publish the content I produce on the DMsGuild.com. There is a slew of different works that I've already produced that are in links down in the description that you can click through to check out the different stuff that I've produced in the past. If you like it, consider making a purchase to support the effort and help keep me buried in coffee grinds. Otherwise, there's about 150 different illustrations there, so at least enjoy the artwork. I've just posted that I am live on Twitter, so if you want to find notifications in the future as well to find out when I am live, you can follow me at Phil Kearney, FILKEARNEY, like my description down below, like the title of the channel. And otherwise, supporting the channel is best served by like, subscribe, hit the bell icon here on YouTube so that I can continue to accumulate more subscribers and hours of view. I really appreciate you guys swinging by and saying hi. So let's get started in here. We're going to work at this. Let's drop this book cover off the screen. And here's the map that we've been working on. So I'm going to start a 20-minute timer and give ourselves... we'll work for about, we'll see where we're at after 100 minutes. And I've been notably off today. So I don't know where I'm going to be at in an hour from now or so. If you know, well, if not today, then we'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back on. We'll be doing Eberron again on Monday night. So we do Eberron maps like this on Mondays and Thursday nights until they're all done, and this is the last significant map that we have to work on. We still have a few vignettes that we need to build out, little 30 by 30 or 10 by 10 maps of just like small locations like a gazebo, an abandoned cottage, a farmhouse, these sort of things. We have a few of these little vignettes that we need to build out as encounter maps. But this is a 55 by 55 inch battle map, and it is the 55 by 55. We have the topside gatehouse, which is a 35 by 35. We have the flooded fortress, which is a 50 by 50, and we have the cemetery, which is also a 55 by 55. And then the underground map is a whopping 74 by 74 inch map space, or 74 inch grid. So we've built out all those other ones. This is the last large map that we have to build. Right now we're working on shrubbery, or more specifically, tree foliage. So this is where we're at right now. This is where we left off last time. We're more or less building canopy, like a rooftop, right? So like if we go into these structures here and like say the this here is the storage warehouse. And here's the roof that we have for it, right? So these canopies that we're working on currently kind of serve that same purpose of being a roof to the trees that your characters can go through. So everything in this is like you can lift off these rooftops or these canopies to see the terrain underneath. So we have the outline of where the canopy is at on the tree, and then we can drop in color on top of it. And when we actually get this thing built out, the canopies will be here above the actual art, the actual depiction of the trunk system and branches that we have. So that's the purpose for all these things. And in black and white, it would look like this without the color ground. With the color version, we have all this stuff going on. So this is, this is where we're at right now. I'm going to do this and then do this and then bump, 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 do that. So now we have white tops for everything for when we do get rid of color. So we'll have these white tops that sit over them. And honestly, these things really don't need much more arting than this. So, boy, that would be a living hell for somebody to have to cut out. You think? Hold on. There we go. Now let's go to select, modify, contract by 1 pixel. Free transform is invert. And then delete. Let's go with we'll go with select and then modify, contract. We want to select, modify, contract 2 pixels, select, inverse, delete. That is a smoother outline now with less choppy chop. So I feel that's pretty good. Let's leave it like that. So we'll drop down here to the canopy. And here. Okay, great. So the next thing we want to do is we want to, I'm going to get rid of the grid just so I have a clean surface to look at. We can add in the grid as we need to if necessary. But for now, I'm going to leave the grid off. Let's check our references. Here's our base reference. We got. You know what? I think the better way for us to do this would be to be self-referencing. So I'm going to drop into here. Mama Hunt, Tricksters, Astral Lancer, Spelljammer Workbench, Knights and Tricksters, Craft Bundle, Region Map. That's what I want. We can use this to be self-referencing. So let's go with boop boop. Let's just grab a snipping tool. There, copy, and close that. And we can go to references here. Burp. Scooch this over a touch. There. So now we can use these colors ourselves. To reference where we're at. How do we want to be? Be this way. Gotta be this way. Turn it down, bring it down, bring it down. Solid. Bring you down, and wreck it down. Let's go with how we want to do this. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, yo. So let's do it. All right, so we're going to take, what kind of brush do I want to use? Let's start off with this brush. This is a generic foliage brush that I use when I do landscape painting in general. So, and it is, yeah, there we go. Hey, Hornetico, it's good to see you, my guy. I'm just gonna stipple this in like that. And I don't really need to worry about staying within the lines because I can just do a select delete for any of the stipple that sits outside of the lines. So not a big issue. Right now I'm just saturating the space with some taparoo. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. I'm still thinking my way through the page layout stuff for the Light as Araxis conversion that we have at the back end of the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement that we've been building, and it's just because there's a lot of technical and tactical information that we have just as guidance and to make it easier for players just to grab and go ship encounters that are in the Light as Araxis in general. But there's a lot of information, and it spans, some of them span 4 pages, which is fucking ridiculous. It is too much. And so I am going through the process of trying to parse down the amount of information that's there and to be able to present it in digestible, easily consumable chunks of information that's easy on the eye and not overwhelming to just to a casual viewer. So I think I have a pseudo solution, but I don't know if I can use it consistently across all the different encounters, especially in the final encounter against the actual Citadel of Light, which is like I'd say just the Citadel of Light alone, with all the different options you have and the interactions of squadrons with both the Citadel, the defending fleet, and all the the defense fighter ships. There's a lot of shit going on that takes like 6 or 7 out of the 25 pages to basically walk through all of it, and it's bulky. So I'm in the process of trying to trim down what the information is and to be able to put it into literally into spatial blocks that are easy to replicate with different encounters, so there's a consistent look to it that's not not overly bulky. And it's a hell of a challenge, but that's why we get paid the big bucks. So as soon as I crack that, we're going to, I suspect the log jam of figuring that out, I reckon, is going to coincide with the time it takes for me to finish all these NPC tokens that we've been doing in the mornings, Monday through Friday. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's reality forcing me to have a little spare time to allow me to let the idea manifest. So, you just gotta, anything else in art, you just gotta kind of work with it for a while until it starts speaking to you about how it wants to be expressed. And once you get to that point, then it starts to flow really smoothly, which is often the case that you see here on these art streams. Like, I'm trying to figure out the mechanical language I want to use to represent, leaves or a swamp or God, go back 10 episodes and look at how brutal it was to create all of the water in the underground facility or in the flooded fortress. That shit took me for fucking ever. But once I figured it out, it was just a matter of just pushing the pixels and it got done. But this feels like that same process of discovery where it's gonna take a little while for it to click in, but once it does, it should be something that I can replicate and, God willing, be able to pick up and use here in Eberron as well. That's why I love working on the Light as Araxis Spelljammer adventure before this thing is done, because it's really helping me learn lessons about how I can organize the information for good adventure structuring. So it's all this stuff is folding together really elegantly for us to basically just have some really kick-ass stuff to play with. So I'm very, very thankful for that process. And what's really important is that I not get hung up and frustrated with the delay process. When your system, when your brain space starts to skip beats, it cycles down as it tries to process the information that you're working with, it's probably because you're encountering a situation that you aren't so familiar with that you can just run it on rote, like what RAM you already have running in your system as right now. It's like it's new information that you're introducing to the system that has to be integrated into the larger whole. That, hold on, ultimately is going to allow you to process better overall. You'll have a better grip of the information that you're working with. You'll have more reference points. And up until now, all of the different literature that I've created has either been DM or player-facing content about either character options, items, spells, or mechanical systems like spellcasting and stuff like that. So this is me. Both of these projects at this point now is me learning how to present adventure content and technical and narrative information for a DM to be able to, run an adventure for their team. So that it's a learning curve I'm going through right now, and you cannot be frustrated with a learning curve process where you're acquiring a new skill. It's absolutely critical that you give yourself a break on that kind of stuff. Because how else are you have to be able, what am I trying to say? Patience and diligence and being stubborn are like hallmarks of being a good artist. And you have to be able to apply that same stubbornness to yourself when you are experiencing difficulties with the process. And trusting that the reason you're there facing the challenge of not knowing what to do is because no one else has ever had to figure it out before the way that you're approaching it. Like if this was just common information that was part of the human collective, you'd have an intuitive idea about how to proceed and it wouldn't slow you down at all. It's when you get ground down and have to consider your options, that's when you know that you are connecting your life experience to the larger collective, or ideally introducing new components to the collective for us to all be able to just intuitively understand things better in general. Which is its own little theory about like why 3-year-olds are so damn good at tablets. It's because when their soul gets rebooted into a new body, there are firmware updates to automatically have them understand the intuitive use of button pressing technology. So they're basically born hardwired to use tablets and cell phones. And as soon as they're strong enough to be able to pick one up, they can use it properly. And without really even having to think about what it is that they're doing. Their body just guides them into whatever pretty picture they're staring at. And it moves from there. That's a collective process experience of us as a species evolving with the technology that we've been developing. So language is a technology, and creating that language for us to be able to express games sounds trite, but it is another application of being able to express chunks of reality and how to gamify that process so that it can be quantified and optimized, which is what I believe the human machine is built to do, to optimize emotional experiences and processing individual experiences to be part of a larger collective. I believe that is our purpose. So I'm doing my part, and you are too. Just by being part of the machine, we are approaching this reality as a collective team to be able to fill in the gaps and see how all these things move together. And once we've played out enough scenarios with enough experiences from enough perspectives, we get to upgrade our experience, which is collectively known as the ascension. Us moving to a higher level of consciousness where we've already accumulated enough individual points of data from unique perspectives that we can now start to integrate them into a larger intuitive experience that we can move as a collective species together, which implies that we would then be able to interact with other species that have different points of reference with different solutions and assumptions of philosophy, which is why we as a species on this planet right now are being pushed so hard to recognize and acknowledge the differences in perspectives that us as individuals have, which is why we're seeing such a large eruption of things like, say, gender and gender experience. In celebration of Pride Month, hello. This is Pride Month is a great opportunity for us to acknowledge that ascension process where we are filling in the gaps of different individual opportunities to experience how self-perception, relationships, sexuality are all intertwined with the human experience, and that we've ascended as a species enough to a point where we can move away from typical biological requirements to sustain the species. Now we can start kind of playing jazz with how we express ourselves as a creature, as an individual point of consciousness. Which is why there's so much conflict over, is my perspective valid? Why are you invalidating my experience, and how dare you? If you look at it from a philosophical perspective, this is where, as a species, we are at right now, capable of acknowledging these small, very small, minute details about preferences and perspective that, again, will fold into a larger collective experience as the current generation cycles out and processes back in. The oldest amongst us are the least tolerant. And as we work our way down younger in generations, you see more and more tolerance towards a broader perspective of what's okay. Or how is it okay to be human? How are we allowed to express ourselves? So as we continue processing through that experience, and older generations drop out of the game, and then they drop a new coin into the machine and queue up as a new creature in the world, they're again being hardwired to understand these experiences, so it becomes a non-issue. It's like, these are my preferences, these are the type of people I like to be with, this is how I want to express myself, and this is how I want you to engage with me. This all just becomes an intuitive experience for the kids that are being hardwired right now. Just like 16-year-olds are capable when they were born, or like cell phones became popular became a thing in 2007, which was 16 years ago. So anyone that's 16 and younger basically was built with the firmware needed to be able to just automatically understand how cell phones, tablets, the internet works. People that are the boomer generation that's exiting now, the great generation, the 90 plus year olds and 70 to 90, the oldest generation that's now dropping off the planet, when they reboot back into the system, they're going to be born as things that just get it. It's like, yeah, sexuality, it's not a big issue. It's like, what do you like to do? What are we playing tonight? And that just becomes part of who we are as a species. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's just what we are. Just all we really have to do is just recognize this process and respect its process. Whoever and wherever you are inside of that spectrum is irrelevant, because as we continue rebooting into this reality, we'll have a broader perspective to be able to appreciate those fine differences. While a species outside of ourselves may look in and not understand that there's even two sexes to begin with, or the vast array of options that lie between X and Y chromosomes. So they may not even be capable of understanding it. To them, it might all just be Z. But we understand those fine differences because it's our experience. But as we expand out and start encountering other types of consciousness, they can learn from that difference too. And there will be conflict, and there will be hard feelings about it. But we as a species will be able to grow to a point where we can have that empathy for, oh yeah, our species didn't get it when we were oscillating between the X and Y chromosome. We can now look at that experience as a species ourselves and respect that you have a Z and you are a W chromosome, and over there you have A, B, C, and D chromosomes. We get it. We can understand how you as a creature can exist and what you are striving towards and your oscillation between different variables. Humans are very black and white, X, Y. It's very simple creatures. But as we scale up in metaphysical complexity, we'll have the opportunity to express W, X, Y, Z as opposed to just say X and Y. So anyway, that's some of the thoughts that are going. That's the stuff that the muse is talking about in my head tonight. So I thought I'd share it. Demonetize me if you dare. It's I'm just trying to get across a point here that there's a lot more we can be if we don't get hung up on the details so much. So just let yourself relax with it a little bit. So this is the basic of the brush that we have been using, but now we're going to switch gears and we're going to use this foliage brush instead. See, it does that. It doesn't seem very, I mean, its patterning is different. So when I stipple this in, it should have the opportunity to, well, that's a really sharp color. So I'm going to drop, I'll end up dropping the opacity on that one to blend better into the system overall. But I'm just going to tap at this a little bit here. Well, this is a great shape. It's starting to create like these little, you can see like these little pocket effects, like these little shadow pocket effects. So we're running through this. We're going to drop the opacity on this like this. Oh, I can do it now. We're going to drop it down to, what, 50%? What's good? 50%. Yeah, see, that's decent. Do that over there. So we can drop these things in like that. See, it's changing. The brush here, I'll show you. Windows. Let's go to tools. No, I have tools already. Let's go to brush setting. Bloop. Okay, see, there's a scattering trigger that we have here. The scattering is both the scatter itself, like if I were to go. Let's use a different color there. See, if I were to go like this, it's creating all these goofy like variables here. Like these are. If I was going like this, it should just be a smooth line, but you can see that as I draw, it's like literally spinning and resizing itself. It's because I have a count jitter, which is a randomizer of how many times it's stippling every time I move the brush. Like when I move the brush here. I'll erase these things so you can see it again. When I tap once, there's that. When I tap there, it's there. See, every time I tap, even though I'm just going down, it's causing it to spin. I'm not spinning that. It's spinning itself, and it's changing its angle. And so when I run down the line like this, it's doing that spin and resizing effect over and over again. Every time I move a pixel, it's throwing on a new lump at a different size at a different angle. So it's creating this ongoing randomizer on top of me being able to simply just turn the brush on my own. Every time I tap, it's also turning the brush and resizing it and changing its angle on the Z-axis. So I create this randomizer, like this randomizing mush effect. And then I had the shape dynamics here, the size jitter, angle jitter, like I was just talking about. These are things that cause just a random number generator inside of my brush every time I tap it. So that's what we're. Oops, let's go back to the right color. There we go. That's why we're seeing this different density and dots or angle every time I'm tapping here. It's designed to keep it scatter random so you can't detect any obvious patterns in the work. 50. But the end result is I can just tap, and I don't have to worry about what the angle is, what was next to it. All I have to do is just tap through the space and fill in the gaps as I feel appropriate. Because the thing itself is going to cause spin and change the variables, so it has that chaotic look to it, if that's making sense. So it just creates these natural little pockets as it spins. It doesn't align. Nothing locks in together here. So it has all these just natural shadow pockets is basically what it ends up looking like. You take this whole canopy and we can see. That's what our trees look like. See, I can see there's some holes here that I want to fill. Like that. Yeah, not bad. And this is but that's what this custom brush is. I have this brush that's just a standard non-variable brush, but I built this variable mechanic for this brush permutation specifically so that I could click into it, and let's look at the shape again. See, it's called Foliage Things Spin. That means that it automatically spins by itself every time I click on it. See, it's spinning by itself. That's what I mean by spin. So when you see a spin tag on one of my brushes, like Mountain Range Spin, that also will have. It should have. Oh no, this one's just spin like that. Sorry. Apparently, I'm full of shit. There's supposed to be. Oh, that's right. Spin was the original language that I used. Just for brushes that I've locked in the Z-axis rotation option. I could swear I had a random effect, and apparently I haven't been consistent with it. Hold on. Let me go find that. Burst spin. There we go. That was the word I was looking for. Yeah. All of these things have spin function on them, which is the Z-axis rotation. But not many of them have burst. Bush, half strike down, faded edges, foliage thing spin, brush burst spin, right? Anyway, it's probably not that important. All right, anyway. I'm potentially full of shit there, so never mind. I thought I attempted at one point. I knew I was trying to codify a system. Apparently, I never actually got around to doing it. So maybe that'll be a task I do someday. But look, if I tap, it's smooth. If I tap and drag, it creates a clump. So right now, all I really want to do is just as small a stipple as I can. Noise. Oops. Okay, so when I pan out this far, I can see where there's oddities. There's one clump here, and there's one clump here that are a little more intense than I want. So I'm going to take the same brush as an eraser at 100%, and just drop an eraser there and there. There. You know, I didn't realize there was a third season of Solar Opposites out already, but I really like that show. It's the same folks that do Rick and Morty. And honestly, it has a lot of the same aesthetics to it. Same art style, same kind of humor. It's just aliens that are trapped on Earth with ridiculous super technology and a lot of apathy and hostility towards humans in general. So it's fun when they go off on people or like do horrible things to them. And they also have like one of the kids keeps shrinking random humans, collecting them in a wall, in a glass wall, like an ant colony that they keep in their bedroom. So there's like a subplot. So there's the aliens doing whatever hijinks they are, but then there's always a subplot going on each season of humans trapped in the wall that are either interacting with each other or trying to escape or reestablishing control of something or whatever. And in the third season, they attempt to escape and free each other. So that's going to be fun. But so you have this serial plot, like you have episodic stuff that happens with the aliens running around Earth, and it's different every time. But the serial aspect of the show is the struggles of these micronized humans stuck in the ant colony on the wall. So it's a lot of fun. It's a legitimately funny show. So if you haven't seen it, it's on Hulu. It's called Solar Opposites, like polar opposites, but S as in soul, as in like, you know, the sun. Anyway, you probably already got it. But that's a cool show, and I didn't realize there was a third season of it. So I'm looking forward to plugging in on that. There. Of just some alien meta commentary. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, like, look how stupid society is. As an outsider, this makes no sense, and let's make fun of you for it, which is very cathartic. It is very cathartic and incredibly satisfying when they tear something up, like the wine episode where they convert people into being their biology is used to create bottles of wine that they then basically shit out full bottles of Chianti or whatever. I think that was Solar Opposites. Honestly, after a while, I get confused between what plot was Rick and Morty and which was Solar Opposites, because they're both in that super science meta commentary you're talking about. But they both have access to godlike technology to like create solutions that often aren't any better than what it is, which is ultimately, I think, what a lot of the commentary is like, this seems stupid. Let's try to do it some other way. That's completely stupid too. So whatever, we're just going to keep doing what we do because we're lazy, and we're just going to leave it that way. Like, I think that's ultimately what the commentary is. Like, this is garbage, but there's no real other way to do it, so whatever is, like, I think how it kind of lands. But it's a fun show, though. I like it. I like it. But, I mean, almost all sci-fi is some sort of a meta commentary on society in general. I mean, Star Trek is a constant episodic commentary on societal norms or assumptions that are depicted in a radicalized, like it's blown out to a radical proportion in these creatures that they interact with. So. But those mice, that mice fight was freaking epic. Loved that, and that whole episode was just hilarious. This highlight I don't want to have go all the way out to the edge of the space. I kind of want to leave it further inward. In a sort of, the closer to the middle of the tree you are, at the top apex of it, it has a higher, it's a brighter highlight. So that is the approach I want to take with this. Let's go with B-dub above. There. This will help us keep an eye Where are tree be? So let's go. I think I want to do like a 40% eraser and just tap along the edges here to blend in those bits some. That feels pretty good. And I can drop something here and then fade that out. I'm hoping. God, what was that show called? Surrogate. With the gal that was Hit Girl in Kick-Ass. In the near future with the synthetic bodies in the if you haven't seen it, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. I want to say it was HBO, but that was a really good show. I think it's called Surrogate. Where she gets recruited to quote unquote play test a new game, but in reality, when she logs, it's a VR thing. So when she logs into it, it's actually sending her consciousness to the future through a quantum tunnel to inhabit a synthetic body for her to perform heroics against creatures and machines that are actually shaping reality in the future. And over time, they start to figure out who the political powers are and what their motives are, and why it is that people from the past that play video games are being recruited to do this. I mean, at the core of it, it's really just the Last Starfighter, right? But it's done really cleverly, and it's really good storyline. The characters are interesting. She's a fantastic physical actor. She really, I mean, we already knew that from her role at Hit Girl, but she's really leaned into that style of acting. She's going to be a hell of an action hero if she sticks with it. So I'm really looking forward to that. But that's a great show. I'm really hoping it gets picked up for a second season because I'm really looking forward to seeing where it might go. But here we are. We're just stippling and between them as well to try to differentiate between different layers, different. Hold on. Bop. I'm gonna bring that down a bit like that. Tap to refresh. Hey, Post. I didn't realize. My vision's horrible. So your name is just about the same length as Hornetico's. So I didn't realize you were a different person. I'm legally blind. I don't see any color. I basically started painting in color because a friend of mine. I was lamenting to him that I felt bad that as a colorblind artist I wouldn't be able to really push myself and get into color, and he just challenged me. He was like, figure it out. Like, it was just like, why don't you figure it out? I was like, I just don't think. It's like, have you ever really tried? And I was like, no. This was me as a 19-year-old, right? And he's like, just fucking try. So I did, and at that time, Photoshop 3 I think was out. So I picked up Photoshop in a tablet and I fucking figured it out. And I've been painting in color ever since. But the punchline here is I've got 2200 vision because of my retina damage. And as a result of that, I apologize. I only thought I had Hornetico here with me, but yet you are Post Bunny. So, hello. Yeah, right on. Yeah, monochromatism. It's an interesting little... It's just born without cones. So it just doesn't, a lot of the machinery that normal people have is just missing. So we all have our quirks. That just happens to be mine. And, but here I am painting in color. It's because I grab color references. Photoshop RGB tools up here, and the eyedropper tool allows me to drop in here and use my eyedropper to pick up any color that I want. And as long as I keep an eye on what my RGB is, and I learned what my RGBs are supposed to look like when is something supposed to be purple, when is something supposed to be red or green or blue or blah blah, then I can pick up on like if there's a weird coloring filter that I might not be visually aware of, but then the RGB numbers tell me it's off. I can use that as a gauge to make sure I'm using the right colors. So as long as I'm working off of photos, I can normally, like this is a photo, but the trees in this one are really monotone. So I didn't want to use that. I wanted to use. I ended up collecting a group of different types of trees that all bend into different type of green variations that I can use as a mishmash that creates like this texturing here that that pulls it out as being different from anything else around it. So instead of just like, I could just do a monotone green block. I could do that, but didn't want to. It didn't have enough. I didn't think it had enough visual interest to quite do it that way. So I decided to do this different variant of light and dark. And at this scale, like on the realm map, right? It just looks like a hodgepodge of colors. But when we get into this map where we're looking at the forest, again, we're using the aesthetics languages at the closest to the edges of the trees is the darkest. And as you move further up towards the center of where the canopy is, it's the lightest. It's like, as though light were hitting it more. So we create this. We can create this aesthetic, which has been very pleasing to me this adventure thus far. So I'm sticking with that. But that's where my color selections are coming from. Is that I'm just pulling references off of different images that. Photos online that I know aren't being filtered weird, that I can trust to be able to provide the correct color information. And occasionally I'm wrong, but my gal, she's a really good art director, and her family are all artists. And she's been coincidentally, before I fell in love with her, I didn't know this, but she had been spot editing her brother. Her brother's a professional comic book artist, and went to art school and all that stuff, and she's been basically spot editing his work since she was like 12. So it just happens, a miracle, that I fall in love with a gal that she has a hyper awareness of color. Some women have like this really deep perception of color, which is ironically matched up with me, who has zero. It's we didn't know that about each other when we fell for each other, but as we would scroodle in bed at night and talk about the future and ourselves, we found out these things about each other, and it's like, wow, what a cool little gift of fate. And it's been really cool. So she'll come and bust my chops occasionally about, I don't like that color. Or she's like, that's the wrong color, but don't you dare change it because it's fucking cool, So even at this point, even the mistakes that I make end up often being okay, because I'm more interested in the value, or like how bright or dark something is, as opposed to what the actual RGB count is, the tint. I don't care about the tint. That's why I use the photo references and paint by numbers in that sense, because as long as I know it has the light and dark values that I've been taught over and over and over again through these experiences, that even if I get something wrong, it can still be interesting. So when you detect something, just take a moment with it. I don't have to worry about, I fucked this up. Like I used to really bust my balls over getting the wrong color on the page at a time, but there's been so many instances now, like with like aurora borealis effects and just different lighting conditions, where my gal will come along, it's like, why did you change that? And I'm like, because it was wrong, blah blah blah. It's like, I wish you hadn't, because that was really cool. X, Y, and Z. Trust yourself more next time is the lesson that she always gives me. So that's been an amazing experience for me. But I like this. See, I like how this is sitting. I even like how these branches are kind of poking through. I think that's super fun. And then when we get rid of the canopy, and again, the way that we build this map is that here's our grid, right? And this canopy group that we have here is literally a separate image file that if you drop this into a virtual tabletop, you can then click, the whole canopy thing there. There we go. So you can click and basically like drop that layer into the DM's layer so it disappears from the character's view. If they walk, kind of like in a video game, if you walk underneath the tree, the foliage disappears so you can see where your character's at. This is designed to have that same intent. If your battle is above the tree line, you want to leave the canopy in place. But if the characters run underneath a tree to seek cover, then you can remove the canopy so you can see where they go. Same thing, and like I showed earlier, the same thing with the. I feel like I've lost something. Oh, there it is. Black, white. The structures, right? I was showing this earlier, like the storage here. We had built out roofs for each individual one, and as you can see, they're still white because we haven't colored any of them yet. So, but we have a there back to 100%. There you go. So the next thing we'll do, now that we've finished these canopies, I can cut each. I can merge down the canopies, cut them out as individual pieces, and then just leave them where they're at. But when I bundle this all up into the zip file. For people that purchase you'll be able to read the entire adventure on the DMsGuild.com at no cost. That's how I roll. Like all the things I have in my description, all the books in my description down below, you can read them through all the way. But to get like all these assets and stuff, that's why you would spend money on it. So that's a really big. Like when I was a kid growing up, I went to B. Dalton Books, and I would read like the Dungeoneer Survival Guide from first edition. Like I'd read it cover to cover in the back. In the kids reading section, because I didn't cause any trouble. They knew I was going to end up buying a book. They let me read the whole thing, and when I collected enough lawnmower money at 12, I'd come back and I'd buy whichever book was grabbing me the most, like the Planescaper box set, the Spelljammer box set, Oriental Adventures, Dungeoneer Survival Guide, Wilderness Survival Guide. All these things I had a chance to take a look at in the store, and then when I had the money to buy another book. I would go in and buy it. And so management was like the managers that were there on the weekend. It was the same guy all the time. He was super cool with me being there because I didn't cause trouble. I was friendly, and I was there. I was basically just doing really long shopping. So I have that same attitude for the books I publish on the DMs Guild, that you should be able to read through this book to make sure it's something that's interesting. If you read through it once and you're like, yeah, whatever, you throw it aside, it wasn't resonating with you, why would you buy it? But if you go back and look at it again, or even a third time, there's probably something there. It's like, that's like a good, honest people consistently continue buying my books as they stumble into them. It's like, yeah, I can read this whole thing. It looks cool. I'm going to buy it because people are honest. And if you just lean into that, like, no one pirates my shit. I'm nobody, so why would they? But beyond that, why would they? Like, who pirates Piezo Pathfinder books? They're all available online at no cost. So, but the added value that I give you is the zip file that has all the tokens, the maps, all the trinkets and things the fiddly bits that you can use inside of the adventure or on your character sheet or whatever. Anyway, I'm pontificating. I will silence myself and get back to work. But text. I art mostly with pencils. Oh, yes, yeah. Obviously, I was in pencil for years, obviously. So I have color vision, but drawing grayscales. Yeah. And I'm memorizing the number of values of different regular colors. Yes, yeah. It's I can immediately jump at like that's a yellow, right? But like this is more like a gold because it's a little bit more red than green with the blue drop down. Like that's starting to bend into like a metallic color, right? Anyway, and I know like the more radical the color divide is. Well, here there's a little exclamation point that says this is an unnatural color. Nothing in nature exists with this RGB array. Be aware. Like that's Photoshop actively telling me you are working in mythical colors. Be aware of that. So when I'm adjusting RGBs on my own just to fiddle with them, I can keep an eye on that warning signal. But otherwise, I know that, I can fiddle with stuff however I want. Like if this is coming across as, I think this would be like more purple as opposed to like this being indigo, for instance. So these are all things that I had to learn. But after 20 years of registering these RGB codes, it's pretty easy for me to tell is is this something that belongs on the page or doesn't it? So, but yeah, but I love pencil. I do pencil sketch. I don't do much pencil sketching these days because using a tablet in a Wacom stylus, it's the exact same process. And I don't use a Cintiq or like a draw-on monitor because they're really expensive, and I like to be able to replace parts in case I damage them. But my sketching online is the exact same as the sketching that I do on a tablet of paper. So that was a really big advancement for me as well, to be able to move into that space. And then, sorry, I don't necessarily know where different comments are coming from here and there, but I'm glad that you're digging the stream. So let me catch up with you real quick here, and then I'll get back to work. As long as we want to reassess things, how true. Yeah. She's been my gal for 25 years now. So, hey, Matt, just joined the stream. No need to apologize for that, man. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks. Are you adding fallen leaves around the trees? We're going to do. We are going. Where did my numbers? Black and white. I've lost something. Something went cattywampus while I was poking stuff around. Hold on. But yeah, we're going to do, now that we have these trees here, we're going to start adding in more clumps, like clumps of grass. We have the discoloration here on the ground, which is a general indication of grassiness, which is what we dealt with in the last session we were here on Monday. But now that I have these canopies here and I have the language for the trees, I can go back in and I can start creating little clumps. So that would be the next step that we would do. I want to get to these rooftops, but I probably won't. So what I definitely need to do is find out what the fuck happened to what happened to the rest of my stuff. It's got to be hiding in here somewhere. So trees, structure, maybe it's down here in the structure. There it is. Fences, I just turned them off on accident. Fence posts. And tree structure. Get rid of the numbers. Let's get rid of the grid for now. Reference is fine. Black and white is good. Oh, there we go. There's the ground. And then here's the canopy. Ground, canopy, color. Just making sure everything's lined up properly. Good. Okay, cool. Now I can go in here. I'm going to create another group and call it canopy as well. Canopy. And I'm going to duplicate the canopy. Duplicate the group. Hide the original group. Merge this current group. And now I can go into the black, white, trees. Let's hide all the color. Go back to the trees. Let's see. There's a way for me to do this. Hold on. There. Okay, so let's go down. Is it? Oh yeah, I did do those individually. Okay, I have another way of doing this. Hold on. There's actually a better way for me to do this. Let's go back to here and here. Color, canopy, canopy. It's a canopy. This is where I want to be at. Right. So here. And now I can go to this merged layer and you can see, let's go here. You can see all this little twiddly bit that's sitting outside of the borders of what the canopy is. I can, now that I've outlined, I can delete it. Now it's gone. That is not what I wanted to do. I need to do that differently. I need to select, modify, expand. Yeah, expand by 3. Nope, now I need to select inverse. Go back to where it was. So it should be out. Come on, baby. Select inverse. Good. And now we can select, modify, expand by 2. So the area gets larger, so I can afford to delete like that. And it's still fucking with me, are you? All right, let's expand some more. Select, modify, expand. How about by 5? Wrong direction, Kearney. Let's inverse. Select, modify, expand by 5. Yeah, there we go. Oops. And then select inverse. Now we can delete. There. That is now clean foliage. So this now becomes an effective lid that I can lift off and put on. And when I lift it off, you can still see the outline, which is the border of the canopy. So if I lift this off, if I have this on here, your character's not underneath the canopy. When your character goes underneath the canopy, I can turn it off and you can see where your character is relative to the trunks and still see the foliage. So if you're worrying about like being targeted by somebody that's on this rooftop, if I'm in this foliage and I'm within this line, I know that I can't be seen. If I'm partially in that line, then I have partial cover. Easy D&D stuff. And now I get to take this and cut and paste that there. And these are all separate little instances. So I want to cut and paste them all separately like that. I know I need to catch up on the conversation down below because I simply don't have the vision to be able to operate out here and read in there, which is why you're always looking at the top of my head whenever I'm reading your comments. God blessed, I am not bald, and you don't have to look at a big bald spot on top of my skull. Again, it is the prophecy. He is the chosen one of the stream. Look at his head of hair. Hey, Tyler. There's number values. Let's see, one of this is Destiny. Thank you very kindly. Oh, another 20-minute timer for me. Click that through. It's 8:15. I still got 40 minutes before I have to decide whether I'm on or not. Just on the stream, fallen leaves. Yeah, so we're going to work on clumps. We're going to work on grass clumps now, just in the surrounding area. Am I getting ahead of you by asking if there should be more scattered leaves around ground to account for wind? No, you're not getting ahead of me at all. Or is it just highlighting you were doing? Yeah, so this general patchiness down here is just indication of where it's untrampled grass. And here, I'll show you the photo reference that we were using. I don't want to like have wind be the accounting factor, because if there is enough wind to knock them off of the tree, then those leaves are just going to be constantly moving. The last thing I want to do is saddle you with 5,000 individual leaf assets for a DM to push around the screen. Nah, but I can just visually represent ground noise, quote unquote, which is what we'll get into. But I just wanted to show the reference that I had been using. There it is. See, you can see that there is a grassy, like this greenageness here is a grassy grass. While over here you can see like this is trampled earth. It has a grassiness to it, but it's more dirt than grass, right? It's got that high GR value over the B, so it's mostly gray. I know that it's partially just being washed out because of the oversaturation of sunlight. But at the same time, if we come over here, you can also, well, that's a shadow. But there's a considerable difference between the color saturation values here on the RGB scale when I'm playing around inside of this tree, as opposed to when I get on the ground here. Like it becomes Like this has a wider, yeah, this has a much wider RGB variable than the ground here. So even though I can't specifically tell what the terrain is, I know that from the RGB language that we're looking at, that this is just like worn down dirt, dying grass and stuff, while it's healthier over here. So using that same narrative idea, we can, like out here along the perimeter around this fence here, like the back of the house where there's no doors, like this is where you're going to see more clumps of vibrant plant life. And so now that we have the trees established, we can go back to the ground layer here and start using some of these more exotic brushes that I have to start creating grass clumps. And now that we have a decent, like I only got like little dots that are going here for all these leaves, but I think that's great, because if we use a different type of brush that's not just using a round stipple. And again, if we add the grid map, here's your 5 foot square map. You don't really need to be like, if you really want to look at your character, you can get to this level of depth, right? And you can see here, this is just basically a collection of dots, which is its own. Ooh, I got some little variables here I need to clean up eventually, but I'm going to switch to a different type of brush. Let's go with the half stroke. Like that, and then let's grab a darker. See, that's its own brush. So we'll figure out what we're going to do right now is we're going to figure out how I can use that and other brushes to blend together to create a different type of texture, so that even though I'm going to be using the same green foliage in general, it'll have a different texture to it. So you'll be able to identify tree area. I mean, well, you have the border here, which is going to make it real easy to tell where the canopy ends. But the point I was trying to make was, right, the same color but different textures helps your eye divide those into different spaces or different assets as well. So that's what we're going to do. So I don't know if this is the right brush or not, honestly. I want to poke around. Let's poke around and look at what we got. I could use my prickle brush. That started off as a geomorphic cauliflower head. You know, like cauliflower that has like that smooth brain look to it, but that was genetically engineered. The actual wilderness cauliflower looks like a fractal structure model. And that it has all these geomorphic replicating shapes like a fractal. So when you blacken the highlights and then invert and erase the shadows, this is the shape that I got out of that geomorphic cauliflower head. So here, I'll see if I can find you guys one. Fractal cauliflower. Here's the real shit. That's a fucking cauliflower. That's cauliflower. Look at that fucking shit. Is that not God just staring you in the face right now? That is amazing. So at somewhere I grabbed one of these images and basically like grabbed this clump here, inverted it so these highlights became black and the shadows became white. And then I erased all the white, and this was the shape that was left. And then I made it into a brush that I can now use. I still use it. In the bushes that I make for the Bob Ross stuff that I do. So, but God, cauliflower is amazing. A, it's great for picking up ranch dressing and blue cheese dressing. B, it adds heartiness to any veggie sandwich that you want. And C, it's just God staring you in the face. Maps get made for a module. Yes. Yeah, cool. I'm up to speed. So yeah, let's go with our geomorph for a little bit, just to see how that serves us. I'm gonna work at the edges here. I'm just doing some tap. tap, tap, tap-a-roo. I don't have to be too specific about it. I'm going to erase most of it. But I'm just creating an edge here. This one doesn't auto spin like the foliage brush we were using earlier, so I have to specifically go in and target the angle of each. But this is also, well, actually, I can't use this because this is the brush that I used for the crystals. Ugh, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Can't use that one at all. So let's go back here. Let's pick a different brush. I love that brush though. It's a fun brush. Let's go with, you know, if I just go with my grass lashes spin, this is a brush that I use to do like grassy tarns and just like meadows and fields and stuff. But it's meant to be from like a proper perspective, not as an overhead. Don't know how appropriate that is, but like when I do things like that, I can then go back in the same erase with the same brush, drop the opacity on the eraser like to 30%, and then I can tap and erase at it, and it ends up leaving these cool little artifact effects. Like if this was a hill that I was painting, I started up the stream on Wednesday. If you go back and you look at my my art commission playlist, I've got the book cover that I'm doing for Reclaimant by Joseph Vargas, Ukulele Bard. That is a landscape painting that's going to be the cover to his role-playing game. It's a role-playing game, a book about humans in the Industrial Revolution fighting against nature spawned by Yggdrasil manifesting on Earth. So it's just, you know, I'll show you the illustration just because we did a number of variables on that and I just wanted to geek out on it for a second. So where are you? Cover. So yeah, Yggdrasil looming in the distance, and then here is mountain range, hills, a river flowing into a bay, a town here, foreground with bushes and some tree line on this knoll overlooking. So I have this radical foreground here, which pushes the entire thing back. The bay, the deep bay that the city could build on. Forms another layer of perspective, and then it gets pushed back further by this low hill here and this hill here as this river bends here. That creates a third level of perspective, and then it bends again. So we have another hill that shapes that bend, and then we have another what's growing into a mountain here that causes another bend, and then you have mountain and then a mountain, and then behind all of that is Yggdrasil. So this is establishing I don't know if this is, this one, there's a couple, we have a couple that he's decided between that one and this one. And in this one, Yggdrasil is massive because this is a coastal scene with these little boats out here in the water, and you can see a city here, and like you can see like a town here, and this will be a forest. But it has that perspective line that then just gets obliterated by Yggdrasil just looming in the distance. But these will both be full color, like Bob Ross style paintings in a fantasy setting. Because I spent a year doing nothing but Bob Ross paintings back in, I want to say it was like 2014. That I spent a year doing about 130 different Bob Ross illustrations just to get to a point where I can do landscape like that. But once I get a decision between whether it's going to be number two or number four, I may, like if he decides to go with number two, I may end up taking pieces of like this foreground and adding that like here to help break up this emptiness, and to create a little cover here for this waste. It's because it's just like as a sea, this is kind of spilling off of the page. Is bad design. So you want to create a composition that pulls the eye circularly back into the center of the image again. So if I were to like establish this hillside here into this corner, that would lock your vision into this space inside of here, which would then get pulled up into the tree back to the title, or the title then drags your eye down this tree to the horizon here. And then it spills across, but when it hits that foreground hill, it'll push you back up into the tree. So your eye will be going through this cycle effect of doing this. So that's either way, it's going to end up being like a Bob Ross painting. Is the punchline to all this. So all these brushes that I'm using right now to manipulate this space is using these different brush tools. That was, what the fuck? That was weird. Yeah, all these different brushes that I'm using are different tools that I use to be able to reproduce Bob Ross paintings. So, but they also come in really handy for cartography. I've been using these brushes throughout all the other maps that we've done in the previous 130 some odd sessions. Actually, the first few sessions was me creating patches of moss, undergrowth, and mushroom patches. Just as little illustration vignettes to demonstrate the different type of plant life that are in this adventure, that are unique to the plane of Mabar, that manifest inside of this adventure. So, but that doesn't feel appropriate either, because it's a locked perspective, and we need to have a zero perspective overhead POV. So, man, you right about kitchens. I've been making special working 12-hour days. Maps get made for module, and it's the guy who brings in Coke and takes unwanted pictures of the hostesses that everyone... What? What are you talking about, Tyler? I know you've been having work issues. I feel like you're introducing a frame of reference in the conversation that I wasn't previously privy to. Let's do this instead. This is just a like, if I group things like that, it kind of has that like little bush effect. I can put like little flowers on these tips, and it just like a little copse of bushes. But in this manner, I'm hoping that I can use it to establish some wild brush feeling. So I'm just going to go along the border here for a bit and see if I like what it evolves into. I'm going to listen to some Fear Factory when we're done here. Fear Factory is a really good band. They're not very popular. They're like Sacred Reich or Halloween, in that they were like a 80s, 90s metal band that didn't hit huge mainstream success, but had a very unique sound. They were very early adopters of electronica, and so they have Manufactured, which is just a bunch of songs that they created on an album. But then they had Remanufactured, which is that album remixed, kind of like Further Down the Spiral with Nine Inch Nails. They had Downward Spiral, which was the original album. Then they had Further Down the Spiral, which was a remix of the entire original Downward Spiral album. Remanufactured and Manufactured, those are the same relationship with Fear Factory. But they also do a really great cover of the song, the song Cars by, I can't remember his name. That song. Here in my car, I feel safest alone. I can go where I want, and I'm the only way in cars. That song. Anyway, Fear Factory does a really great remake of it. So I like to listen to them. That Remanufactured. I'm blanking on a lot of the other names right now, but they're in my head. So if I go about this and I erase all of that down, I kind of like how that looks. It has kind of like a wild grass sort of feel to it. And I'm using a very low 50% eraser. So every time I tap, it erases that pattern from the mix. So if I tap, it goes from 50% to 25% to 12% to 6% to 3%. So I can tap the same spot like 5 times before it basically disappears. 1, 2, 3, 4, So you can still see it, and then 5 goes basically to like that spot there. Basically goes invisible. So I can go through and I can tap at this stuff and disintegrate the edges of it, so it becomes just a line texture that doesn't have a lot of explanation unto itself, other than it just becomes texture, which is all we're really looking to do here. Have a thick texture out here along the edges, and then thin that texture down to smaller components as we move further in towards society. But yeah, I think I like that. It'll take a little finessing, but it's a good base. It's a very, very good baseline. And since we're talking about base, how low can you go? I'm detecting some smudgery here. That's too. Sorry. Before I go back and do that again, seeing this here, this edge here. Obviously, I took a round brush and just kind of scorbled across there. This is now called an artifact. An artifact is when in a digital painting you can detect the shape of the brush used because it doesn't integrate into the texture or language of the map. This is a sore thumb. It's technically a mistake because it's not. I didn't intend for like this isn't like green water or something that's seeping into the community. It doesn't have any business being here in this format. That's called an artifact. When you can see the digital tools being used inside of the composition because the tools used aren't integrating with the composition correctly. So what that means is I have to smudge it so I can keep the value, the darkness, the dark value of it in the clump, but erode the border line so you can't see that it came from a round brush initially. That now it starts just to bleed in. It just becomes part of the texture of the general environment. So now I have to run around and see any instances of that line space still being present. See, over here too. I was probably pretty tired at that point in our stream. So when I get tired like that, that's when artifacts and sloppiness starts showing up like that. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit before we move back into, oh yeah, complete slop. And me with my shitty vision, I actually have to zoom in this close to actually pick up on that stuff. Like out here, you might not see it either. You might. I certainly can't. But when I zoom in, that's when you can start picking up on these things. Yep. So I can just erode those edges. What is it, 8:40 already? Jesus Christ. All right, well, I'll stick around for probably more than 20 minutes. I was so wiped out today, I took a nap. Normally what happens is I've got my day job till 5, and then I start working on page layouts for the Spelljammer supplement that we've been building in the mornings. And then when 7 o'clock rolls around, I jump on and do stream like this on Mondays and Thursday nights. But I was so wiped out today that I just laid down and took a 2-hour nap before, and I woke up at 7 like crap, I'm late. So this day has not had the production pipeline that I intended it to, but I can't beat myself up for it because if my body wants sleep, it's doing that so I have the fuel and energy to be able to come and attack things the next day. So you gotta take your short rests, folks. They're important for your resources. There, that feels much better. I'll take the canopy back up here, and bam, cool. So we can get back into this. Now that we know that that works, we can continue traipsing along the edges here, build this stuff out, and then we can use that as a template for us to start building further inward until we're content and done. But yeah, I stream 6 days a week, Monday through Friday in the mornings. I have anywhere from hour and a half to 2 hours worth of NPC character token art illustrations that I do. And then Tuesday, typically on Tuesday, sometimes on Monday, but typically on Tuesday, I have a lunch stream where we develop the martial power system, which is a mana-based option for martial characters like fighters, barbarians, rogues, to have non-spells, but using a spell point resource to be able to trigger different die roll benefits or like different reactions and stuff like that. Kind of like a superiority system for the fighter, but mana based. Like if the Eldritch Knight had maneuvers and you spent mana to trigger those maneuvers, or like if you're using spell points for a paladin and you use the smite, like a smite spell for like 3 points of mana to trigger the effect, that's essentially what this martial power system does. So we've been rebuilding all of the fighter, rogue, and barbarian subclasses as though they were casting class kits where they have a bonus list of powers, of different martial powers that they automatically gain at 3rd and 5th, 9th, 13th, and 17th level. So, and then rebuilding different features inside of each of those subclasses that would be modified by the power system that we developed. And if there is no reason to change the powers, then we don't change them. We just give them bonus features. Like these are things that you get as listed in the book. In addition, you get these free powers and you get this power supply to spend them on a daily basis. So that's what that project has been, and it's our back burner project. So we only work on that 1 day a week. But once the Spelljammer book is published, then this Eberron adventure moves up to the morning slot. So I'd be working on Eberron Monday through Friday, 5 days a week in the morning for a couple hours. And then the Martial Powers project becomes my Monday and Thursday evening stream. And once it's actually done being created and we send it off to the editor and comes back, then we start doing all the artwork for that book as well. Just like we're doing for the Spelljammer book right now. And then the Monday, like the lunch stream project that'll probably end up being Dragonlance, the Dragonlance mass combat rebuild system that we've been playtesting last year. I put it on hold because the Spelljammer mechanics uses the same basic resolution dice roll mechanics that our mass combat system does, except that it's vehicles instead of creatures in a platoon. So works really well. Super fucking proud of it. And there's about 7 or 8 different things I want to do as extensions of the Spelljammer product once it's finished. Like I want to do stuff with Neogi. I want to do stuff with Lithid. I want to do stuff with like Scaver Riders. I want to do stuff with Warforged. The first supplement I'm going to build is the Living Ship Sidekick project, which is if you drop the Awaken spell on a ship made out of crystal or out of wood, it becomes an awakened creature, and so you can have your ship be your sidekick, so that none of your characters have to use any of their action economy to make the ship go and do if you want, or you can make that ship your minion. And if you take like a fighter craft, like a 15-foot fighter craft, you could potentially take that in with weapon systems to fight dragons in their lair, for instance. Like you can drop like a Spiderling's a 40-foot craft. It's a big chunky vehicle, and can tear the fuck out of a good dragon if you can get it inside of their lair, or draw the dragon out to chase it down with these ships. So that's one of the projects I want to work on. So there's like 5 or 6 different things I want to do there. And so between Spelljammer and Martial Powers and the Mass Combat book and the Guilds and Kingdoms book that we have in the pipeline, I don't know if I'll be able to publish all these things before WotC potentially kills off the DMsGuild. We none of us really know what the fuck WotC is doing anymore. But I'm in love with all. I bought Spelljammer and Planescape back in like 85 or like 89 or whenever it is that they came out. 89 and 91, I think. Anyway, I bought the original box sets when they first came out, and I've literally been using those settings ever since. Both Planescape and Spelljammer are active in my current Eberron campaign, for instance, which is where I playtest most of this stuff with my weekly team that I play with on Wednesdays. And so it's... but we don't know what's going to happen to the DMsGuild, so I don't know how long Wizards is going to let us play with our IPs, or if they're going to force us all into the D&D Beyond website instead of DMsGuild, and that means I don't know like What's going to happen to my color mana system? Like, is it going to be trapped in limbo? Do I need to rebuild it? I need to rebuild all of the. I need to rebuild all of my system mechanics stuff, like the color mana stuff, for instance. When 6th edition finally publishes, I'll know how all the classes changed, and I'll be able to adjust accordingly to the changes that they make to the system, so that my color mana system remains compliant with it. So when you buy it, you'll have the zip folder will have both the original version that's active right now, but then the model that will be free preview will be the 6th edition version, assuming that the DMs Guild still exists for us to do that at all. If they shut it down and they force us all into D&D Beyond, I'll have to look at the terms and agreements there to see if it's worth it or not. And assuming that it's going to basically be the same as DMs Guild, I can then instead publish the 6th edition color mana system to D&D Beyond instead. But I don't expect them to have the tools in their virtual table scraps to be able to handle a different type of spell point system, which is the biggest problem I have with virtual tabletop systems in general, is how is all the coding that has to go on to make the things work. But I'm liking this. I am liking this scraggly, this whatever this would be called, this ground texture. I like how that's turning out. And I think, hey Fred, yeah, no kidding, dude. You had a really great stretch today. Fred here with How to RPG. He's got a great channel. He's been building his own role-playing game that is 5e adjacent. I think that's an accurate description. Like it can be used with 5e content. I guess like the basic chassis is the same, but all the classes and all the internal machinery is changed. And he was building out a new version of the fighter today, and I just like watching people cook. I love watching people cook, and I've been at this game literally been at this game for like 30 some odd years. So whenever I see somebody cooking, chances are they're playing with something that I have also fucked around with in the past. So it's always fun to see other people's takes on things and how they're approaching it, and I am always down with that. But yeah, thanks Fred. Thanks for swinging by, man. I don't expect you to stick around. If you're exhausted, fall over anytime, you know. But now that we have that in there, I'm going to create a new layer and build this roughage out under here. I can actually hide the canopy and start clumping this in like that, but I'll go through the same eraser. Oops. There, smudge that in. It's true, we didn't look underneath the hood of the canopies. Looks good. 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 Nope, there's some artifacts there. Smudge that out. Here's some artifacts. Smudge that out. And look a bomb. Go fuck yourself. There. Yeah, Fred, when you were Fred was walking through the mechanics of starship combat in the Star Wars Saga system, and it surprised me how many parallels there are in the system that I built for Spelljammer that existed in the Star Wars Saga system. There's a lot of differences, but there's enough similarities that people that have played Star Wars Saga will probably just intuitively understand how my Spelljammer system works, because it uses that same action economy system of like your actual character actions being translated into ship actions, and then the group different roles inside of the ship being able to complement and help each other by using bonus actions, attacks, and reactions to stack up and help other actions that other characters are performing on the ship, so that everybody has the options of using their own action economy to do whatever they want at an individual character level, but can use any of their action economy to instead operate at the ship level during a round of combat, and have whatever action economy they want to commit to the success of the ship to automatically just feed into those options. So Star Wars Saga felt very similar to that, and I'm gonna go ahead and break my arm in the process of patting myself on the back, because I actually think that 5e created an opportunity for that system to become even more streamlined than how Saga has it set up. I will boldly say that I think my Spelljammer system, in its context, is better than what Star Wars Saga would offer if you wanted to use that for Spelljammer. I would just say, once my book publishes, it'll be 100% free preview. So you can just look at those mechanics, and if you like them, then buy it so you can get all the ship tokens. But yeah, 5e is like the best. Just in my opinion, 5e is by far the best role-playing system that's ever been created. It is such an intuitive system. D&D only uses, I shouldn't say 5e specifically, like the D20 system as an overall like branching system mechanic, but the advantage disadvantage system that specifically got built into 5e in particular, I just think is like a really superior, incredibly adaptable role-playing engine that can let you literally do anything that you want. Like one of the reasons I'm not really motivated to leave D&D specifically is just because all of the 5e role-playing machinery is just such good machinery. It's like everything I could possibly ever want to do, I can do inside of the 5e game engine. And I keep expanding on it and bending it to be able to do more and more things, like at larger scales, like the Kingdom and Guild system is fucking gravy. It's really a good system. I'm sad that this isn't my full-time career, and I don't have 4 people working for me full-time punching this kind of content out, because I've got about 400 pages worth of alternate mechanics that work just beautifully inside of 5e for all this like Beck-me mechanic, like this Beck-me sense of empire and kingdom building. It's so much easier than anything that I've seen anyone else. It's like everyone keeps trying to make things really fucking difficult. And it's because the mechanics that they use are too trite. They aren't building a deep enough alternate mechanical system to make 5e do what 5e is really good at, and be able to express things beyond just your individual character. So if you just use some of the alternate, most of my books lean into the proficiency die instead of a static bonus. So something that helps, like if you have an organization that's attempting to rob, like if you run a thieves guild and you have a group of cat burglars, as a thieves guild master, you could send out as a guild task your squad of cat burglars to go case a joint, and instead of you using your proficiency modifiers and ability bonuses, you use the proficiency dice and guild proficiency modifiers to make your proficiency checks for stealth and investigate and sleight of hand, all that stuff. Those are all skills that these cat burglars could use, but it just becomes basically like an individual ability. It's just like a single die roll, but it doesn't use the same it uses the same span of modifiers that your character would use. Like a 5th level character would be like a 2nd ranked guild. And that 5th level character is probably going to have like a +3 proficiency bonus, and probably like a +4 in their dexterity and like a +3 in their intelligence or something like that. It's like their total bonuses overall for these like burglar type skills is going to end up being like a +7, +6 or +7. While in this guild system that we use, a second rank squad of cat burglars would, if they're second rank, they'll get a +2 variable bonus. They'll get a +2 static bonus. But then as a second rank guild, they would have a D6. So they could have a range of anywhere from a +3 to a +8, which in some instances is better than your individual character could do it. But it could also go very wrong and end up being worse. And then if they have a shitty die roll, you as the guild master have a bucket of resource points that you can spend on guild tasks. So you send out your cat burglars, and if they get a shitty roll, then you can spend a certain amount of guild mana per season. It's a 100-day season. So for every 100 days, you get your long rest to get your guild resources back to spend on individual die rolls, and then you could spend those resources to buy up point by point. Like if I only rolled a 3 and I really needed a 7, I could spend 4 guild points to hit that number. But if I had rolled a 6 with my +2 bonus, I got an 8, I wouldn't have to spend any points because I hit the target number that I needed on top of the D20. It's like the DC for this place, like it might be like to case this joint and not be noticed, like it may require like a DC 22 stealth check and a DC 15 investigation check. And my cat burglars are going to have that D6 and the D2 and the +2. So it's a D6 +2 modifier on top of the D20. And then I could try to do things to give them advantage so they could roll 2 D20s and then have that D6 and that +2. And then if they don't hit their mark, I can start dumping guild resources to give them a +1 per point until I hit the target number I was looking for. But if it's beyond my means of doing that, I could have like a compromised success. Like I'll get the investigation, but I'll fail the stealth. So I got the information that I needed, but the place I was casing knows they're being cased. So now it's going to be a more difficult challenge when I actually go back to steal the place. So like that's the kind of stuff that you can do. And it's super easy to integrate that crap once you have all those mechanics in place. Then it's just a matter of adding the narrative behind, like, what does this die roll mean? And I have that. Actually, if you check my Patreon link, if you go into my Patreon, it has the command system as a playtest document. It's a hot mess. So, I mean, word to the wise, if you step into that playtest document, it is a hot fucking mess. But it has the core of all the command mechanics, mass combat mechanics, kingdom mechanics, guild mechanics, and vehicle mechanics. They're all there. And it's just that document's a year old at this point because we peeled out the Spelljammer pieces from it and built them out into a 107-page document like we have here. I'll wait for that to update. I'm rambling like crazy right now because I'm kind of ranting, but Shazam! Here's our Spelljammer document that we have in our Word, Microsoft Word, where we're doing our layouts. But you can see all the pages are broken down, and I've started adding art assets for mapping, diagrams, movement stuff. But this is all of it, from building ships to commanding crews to ship roles that characters can play on it, to different weapon systems, to amplifying spell casting to affect ships at the 500-foot scale. How to affect exploration, like if we dive into this space here. Hey, Shiner. Wait for this thing to update. It's a 100 pages of layout in Microsoft Word. It's a chunky document. I'm waiting for this thing to acknowledge my request to zoom in. I hit the control button and then I spin the flywheel. There it is. Finally zoomed in. It's like here's this is non-Eberron related, I know, but this is the kind of stuff. This is what I work on the side. Here's our encountering objects in space. So there's visibility. So we have the size of the. Here's a random thing. Like if you just want to create a random object that you encounter in space or in the astral sea. Here's the size of that object, like up to 5 feet, like a medium-sized creature, or up to 50 feet, like a fighter craft, or up to 500 feet, like a spell-jamming ship, or up to a mile in size, like the Zerax's Citadel of Light. Rock of Brawl is less than 10 miles, but more than a mile, so it fits inside that 10-mile space. Toril, the planet of Forgotten Realms, fits inside of a 10,000 mile space. So and this is how far away you can detect it if you're using a spelljamming orrery. So like if like the sonar, like the magical radar system that they use to detect planets in orbit that they invented for 5th edition. Great idea, by the way, but they didn't. All they said is that, yeah, you turn this thing on and you can see the planets that are in the system. And then they wipe their hands of it. Like, no, fuck you. This is an opportunity for us to build radars in 5th edition. I'm not going to pass up on that. So that's what we did. So here's the range. Like if you're a human drifting through space, if you have an orrery active and you have somebody that's using that helm, like Mr. Spock looking into the system array, if you're within 1,000 miles, you can potentially detect that human if your detection check, like investigation, insight. It's either insight, investigation, or perception, intelligence, or wisdom. So you have 2 stats and 3 skills that you could use inside of the orrery scanning system to detect or intuit that there's objects out there that you can engage with as a hex crawl version of space. As you encounter new objects, you can decide, do I want to fuck with that or do I want to run away with it, which is a very Beck-me approach to D&D that we've now been able to transplant into 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons using orrery systems. If they're more than 1,000 miles away, up to 10,000 miles away, this roll would be at disadvantage, which is going to be vicious. But finding just a random guy out in the void, that's really difficult to do. But like finding another ship, you can be 100,000 miles away and still pick up that there's like a Scorpion ship that's closing distance with you. And 100,000, they move 10,000 miles per round. So that means that when you are within 1 minute distance of a fighter of a spelljamming ship, you can detect that it's there. And you basically have a minute, both of you have a minute to decide if you want to close distance to engage in some sort of encounter or if you want to avoid each other. And if you decide that you want to avoid each other, that triggers, after the orrery scan, that triggers tracking, which is you can start pursuing that ship. And then we get into closing distance between these objects and trying to avoid each other. And then there's the issue of, well, what if I didn't even notice that ship, but they noticed me? Now they can pursue my ship, and I don't even know they're there. So, and then like if you didn't notice an object, then you could potentially be hit by just random debris. Like the example of like if you unwittingly cross into a pangalactic battle zone, there could still be ballista and catapult stones that are still have inertia. So if you just stumble into this field, that basically becomes like a hazard. It's like a war-torn hazard that if your ship flies through this hex of space or square of space, then you're going to take like 3d6 siege damage for the 2 rounds that you cross through that space. Like these are all things that 5e has mechanics for that was more development time than Wizards was willing to invest on it. But most of this stuff isn't in the 2nd edition either. So but 5e is a versatile enough system that allows you to do cool crap like that. So that's what I work with when I'm off screen. And once we have all these tokens done, I'll be able to like this is a huge empty space here, right? I'll be able to fill this with an illustration of characters on a ship exploring stuff. I don't even know what that is yet, but we'll build it here on stream. We'll extract this page specifically. We'll drop it here into Photoshop. I'll start sketching, and we come up with a cool thing that looks neat that sits inside of this page well, doesn't overwhelm the image, and depicts the information that's on this page, so it's self-reinforcing. Like Fred, you were talking about when you were talking about with castles, you were talking about if you're going to have an illustration in the castle section of your book, why wouldn't you make that a fucking castle picture? Really good point, which is what's so awesome about being a designer and the illustrator. I can have this page talking about and all the visual information on it, all self-referencing that concept together. So once I finish all these tokens that we've been working on in the morning, the timing is curving out so that I'll have like this is one of the chunks of the Lazaraxis adventure that I'm converting. You can see I have these text squares of different, like this is like the Captain Sartell. Here's her stats as a siege commander. Here's Flapjack and his statistics as a pilot and the options that he'll take using his action economy to help the ship, depending on whether he's in charge or he's supporting the characters. But I need to figure out how these things can fit on a page. So that's where a lot of my brain cycles are being spent right now when I'm not on stream with you guys, is figuring out how can I make this thing fit. Because once I figure out how that fits in, I've got like 6 of those encounters throughout the course of the Light of Zaraxis adventure that we have to figure out how to make all of them fit together. Like the Saviors of the Multiverse chapter here in chapter 10, the Space Invaders. You are actively attacking the Citadel, so I'll need to have a Zaraxis space system map here. And then you get into the Zaraxis fleet statistics, like a squadron and fleet of Star Moths. Here's the raw statistics for them, which needs to be formatted into something that's digestible and easy for a DM to integrate. The Temple of Light itself has its own hit point, like 20,000 hit points, because it's a 1,000-foot stone structure that's 200 feet tall. That's how many hit points that structure would have, according to the massive object mechanics that we have up in the exploration chapter. Like, all this shit exists inside of D&D. It just hasn't been extrapolated to ridiculous scales. And what's even more exciting about this, since Spelljammer spills into the Astral Sea, then once Planescape gets released later on this year, I can curve spelljamming into Planescape and use a lot of these mechanics to start describing how you can interact with different planes of existence. Visibility, limitations of light, air quality issues, murkiness of water. All these things are resolved, like with water planets, fire planets, air planets, in the random system generator section above in Appendix 1. But once Planescape comes out, we can look at what is Tartarus, and then we can start assigning different atmospheric and visibility conditions to Tartarus. So if you want to fly a spelljamming ship through a color pool into Tartarus, then you can have a planar campaign on the back of your ship. Like Tyler and Hornetico know this. They were some of my playtesters for Descent into Avernus, using spelljammer ships to fight Zariel's army in the Blood War. And we also use the mass combat rules to accumulate troops and have them engage in the city of Elturel that you were defending against demons as well. Worked out fucking awesome. It was great. The entire siege battle we were able to resolve basically in 3 hours, which isn't bad for an entire city. That's a long-winded fight for sure. But we also had little vignette battles that were like an hour or two apiece of you like raiding a prison to free a frost giant god, so you can acquire frost giant troops, and it's just typical D&D shit, except that it's all a larger scale. So, you cycle through 15 rounds of combat. It's going to take you a little while because it's D&D. But the scale is so different, but all the rules are the same. It's just a different die resolve. I'm just using a variable die instead of a preset number. Anyway, I'm geeking out. I need to get back to work. But yeah, so those are all the different things that like for the Ravnica setting, for instance. If you check out the playtest document, I built out the Simic Combine, the blue-green mana super genetic science guild in the Ravnica setting. I built out what the Renown system that was introduced into Ravnica. I rebuilt it using Renown as a fuel source for being in command of a Zanat, which is like basically like an enclave, a guild enclave inside of the Simic structure. You can either be like a combat, you can either have a combat squad or a science development squad, and I built out variables for each of those. But it goes all the way from level 1 to 20 in its different renown zones. But that's the kind of shit you can do with the 5e mechanic system. That is like it's much further depth than what was presented in the Ravnica setting, and of course they don't use color identity at all in Dungeons and Dragons, even though Magic the Gathering was built on it. It was so fucking easy building a color mana system using 5e that when I opened up the book, I just assumed something like that would be there, and when it wasn't, it took a year. But I was able to build out, a 75-page document that basically created color mana system for D&D. So Theros, Strixhaven, Ravnica printed books. God willing, they're going to do Zendikar. I don't think they're going to do Zendikar, though, because Zendikar is a world of shifting geography, like the mountains move. The whole world is in constant flux. So it's really difficult to build maps. You have to build map vignettes of momentary structures, but it's an awesome hex crawl world. Like if you like doing hex crawling, Zendikar is fucking cool for hex crawls. So if they get around to doing Zendikar, I will then be able to build a color mana hex crawl system in the Zendikar setting. If they end up kicking us out of building content for them, and then I'll have to just build it on Patreon. I'll just build a 30-page PDF and put it on my Patreon and ask folks to support me. But for now, DMsGuild is the best marketing device that I have to say, hey, here's stuff that I'm doing. Here's the things that I'm doing with Wizards content. And as long as I'm welcome to be in that space and I still have things I want to say about Wizards content, I'm going to keep publishing on Wizards because honestly, whether they deserve it or not, it's their stuff. And my philosophy has always been give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So if Spelljammer, I love Spelljammer and I love Planescape. So if I have the opportunity to develop out these assets and to make a better Planescape and a better Spelljammer, my sense of fairness and morality and ethics would have me put it on the DMsGuild, unless they don't let me. If they kick us out of that space and don't let us publish stuff anymore, then I'm still going to build the crap. It's just I'm going to have to put on Patreon instead. I'll give you guys half my money if you let me officially play with your stuff. But if you're going to be dicks about it and take your toys and go home, then I'm just going to do my own thing, and it'll all be fine. But I'd rather, whether I'm a fool or not to do that, I honestly don't care. I can stare anyone in the eye and say this is if it was Green Ronin that owned these IPs, then I'd be happy to give the money to Green Ronin. If it was KP that owned these assets, I'd be happy to give KP the money. I really don't care. That's not important to me. I love the assets, I love the settings, and I feel blessed that I have an opportunity to actually use all the labels in an official sense and put it out there for other people that are also enthusiasts just to take a look at my ideas. And that makes me really proud. So, by God, I'm rambling. Thanks for tolerating my my rant. my value-added rant. Whatever that's worth. But yeah, I'm enjoying I'm enjoying this texturing effect, and obviously the muse is in good spirit because she's letting me just kind of ramble. But I'm just going to keep poking at this stuff for a little while longer. It's 9/11. I can go through another burst. More castle diagrams. Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, Fred, you're a real inspiration, man. I hope to grow up to be like you. Taparoo. Taparoo. Ooh, this is a great ASMR opportunity. I don't understand the ASMR thing. I just know what it sounds like. Too silly. We're gonna do like that, and then we'll come back in here and boop, 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 boop. Erase, erase, erase. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Phil Kearney, the only OnlyFans channel that just does cartography with ASMR tapping. surely I can make $50,000 a month doing that. Here I am on OnlyFans pushing pixels, baby. It's the only way a guy can make any money on OnlyFans. Now I kind of want to do it. Can you tell I'm exhausted? Fucking silly. I can wear a diva bunny suit. Oh, that's great. If I were to do cosplay, it'd have to be Vash the Stampede. Because I've never been blonde. Good. Just deleting that stuff down. Working it into the canvas. Happy little clumps of dirt. Dirt and grass. This little hill over here is a little friend. Hello. There are no mistakes. There's just happy discoveries. Maybe there's... Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's a little... There's a little clump over here. A little happy clump like that. Just a little rich copse of scrubbery over here. It's your world. You can go ahead and put any kind of scrubbery brush that you want in it. This reminds me of a cottage I used to go to with my family in the Havanas, and there's about 5 bodies buried underneath this tree here, but you'll never know it. Happy little corpses. Man, that's looking good. Gritty. It's gritty, which is exactly what we wanted. Just grit. Texture on the ground with a little bit of color information to help imply what this stuff has got going on. It takes a little while to build it out, but it's simple. Hey, Dreams, how you doing, my guy? See, like little patches of grass, because of that texture that came through. And since I was spinning the brush in different directions, it doesn't have a specific angle or perspective, so it's not creating any kind of bias. It's just color texture information to provide a difference between being in this area here versus this well-worn area. But that's what we said we were going to do. So it's all folding together nicely. Dream, since you've been playing with brushes, with the philosophies that I use on brush design, at the beginning of this session, you probably want to go back and check it out, because I was talking about the different like building variables into a brush to create randomized shapes by tapping. I walked through the mechanics of that stuff, and then shared like how that stuff looks. So that's probably valuable to you, since I know that you've been exploring how to develop your own brush set techniques. So definitely worth checking out. And if there's anyone else that's lurking around, hey, welcome to the mix. I do this 6 days a week. In the mornings, Monday through Friday, before I go into my job. And then on Monday, typically Monday or Tuesday, I do a lunch stream for mechanical development of different Marshall systems for 5th edition. And then Mondays and Thursday nights like this, we do this Eberron cartography. And once the Spelljammer document is done, we'll do Eberron every morning, Monday through Friday. We'll do martial powers on Mondays and Thursday nights like this. And then our lunch stream will become something different, which might be the Dragonlance mass combat conversion, using our mass combat rules to rebuild and reimagine how the Dragonlance adventure would be if your characters, like if your team of characters were the commanding officers of a platoon of Solamnic Knights going through the adventure trying to save Solamnia from Takesis and her army of Draconians. So, I don't know if Wizards is going to allow us to use their tools, their toy box, and all these different IPs. By the time, it's going to take me a year or so, honestly, to get that thing built. But I'll have to start playtesting it. I reckon probably, I want to say, my brain is telling me somewhere around September, I can start doing the first chapter of playtesting. But assuming that it works the way I suspect it's going to, then I have to build out all the maps and you know, like I was showing here, I have to build out all the stat blocks for the different squads and platoons and regiments of both Solamnic Knights that you can command, but also the Draconian soldiers. And then there's the board game. And Dreams, I know you have that board game. I'll probably hit you up for some of those for some of that page stuff. But I'm probably gonna have to end up going out and buying it, because I'm going to convert the entire fucking board game into the 5e mass combat system that we have, because it can. Just because I can. So that's gonna be a fucking huge pain in the ass, but it'll be fucking worth it. And then once I get that done, assuming we can still use their toys, I'll rebuild Descent into Avernus using the Spelljammer mass combat guilds and kingdom systems, so that you can go from Demon Prince to Demon Prince, bartering off pieces of your soul to acquire more troops, to create a large enough faction to actually be a third leg in the Blood War to defend Elturel, while your characters level up to be able to pull the city out of hell back into Toril. But you have to have a large enough force to be able to defend it against both devils and demons. So you have to go around and you have to sell off pieces of your souls so that you can get all those troops gathered up. And then once you have the hag mechanic start converting the Infernal War Machines, converting them into Spelljammer craft, Then you can fight Zariel in her flying blade. It's a 500-foot spelljamming ship. So once you get up to that scale and you can take her on, that's a decent 15th level capstone adventure. We may be able to push out the content to 20th level. Don't know yet. But that, honestly, that's probably not going to be for another 2 or 3 years. So, but it was fucking fun playtesting it with the Spelljammer mechanics. But it'll be a while before we get there. So I'm going to go back here to black and white, to the structures, to the storage, get rid of the rooftop for now, since we're still working on these ground scrub variables. I feel like I have enough of this specific brush language. But I wanna add more. Give me more, give me more, give me more. So let's switch to another brush. Different brush. Present brush. Present time. Ha. And once we finish all of this coloring, then we get to go back in and redo the map after the zombie swarm comes in and kills everyone. So we'll have splotches of blood and corpses and piles of poisonous moss and stuff like that in the buildings. We'll have to rebuild all this stuff, but that's a while away. We'll get there. We'll get there in time. What brush? What brush do I want to use? Let's see if I can get some mileage out of my my grass brush. Is that what I want to use, my grass brush? Let's see if there's something else that's interesting. Got the fractal brush. Nah. I can do this Shuri faded brush. That might be good. And let's grab another color reference so that we can keep variety alive. What? Get the heck out of there. Thank you. Purple. God, that's weird. Well, okay. Dare we put some purple on our map? Why the fuck not? The worst case scenario is that it doesn't work and we just delete it and start over. Text! Is there an option to play on the other side? My work has improved tenfold and I only just started. Nice, dude! That's great! And is there an option to play on the other side in case we wanted a campaign on the side of the Dragon Army? I hadn't considered it initially. The adventure that Wizards gave us is Solamnia facing, with the Draconic army being controlled by the DM. But you could do PvP using the mass combat system. It works just like Spelljammer, basically, in that instead of it being a ship that like a Spelljammer ship is basically like a battle flotilla that you spend your action economy to move. And ooh, God, I think I like that. That you spend action economy to move and to fire weapons by commanding crews of siege teams to fire the weapons. But using the the mass combat system, instead of you having a ship, you basically have enough. You have soldiers or allies, minions or troops. That fill space, like for example, a goblin arrow is a 15 foot by 15 foot, a 3x3 huge size craft. It's a 3x3 square, right? Like it's that big. It's a 3x3 square. But at the 5 foot scale, 3x3 square, that's up to 9 soldiers. And if your character is inside of that unit, then it basically becomes that squadron of creatures becomes essentially a mount, like a horse or a dragon or something that your character is basically riding on, and then all of them coordinate their attacks to attack together. So a 3x3, like a 9-man squad of like foot soldiers with shields and swords would be doing like 3d8 damage every time you command them to attack. And assuming that your character is a high enough rank, they'll be able to coordinate their actions to immediately attack again and again and again. So you're basically using your action economy to essentially just like they basically become like a really powerful, like a summoned steed, you know, like a paladin. You'd be able to just convert that steed into its own squad, and using the system that we have, it basically becomes a pile of temporary hit points that adds to your character's hit points. So if you don't want your steed to die, you take it has its pocket, kind of like what is it called? The Warlock spell that gives you the armor shell, the cold based spell that, as long as the temporary hit points exist, it deals retributive damage to whoever attacked you, right? But when the temporary hit points are exhausted, the damage is gone too. Troops work that same way. Thank you, Armor of Agathis, right? So it has that same sort of, or like if you were to combine Armor of Agathis with Warding Bond, that's kind of the gist. You get a pile of temporary hit points that you can choose to take damage, or you can let the squad take damage. If the squad drops to 0 hit points, obviously all your troops are dead. Or each troop basically has 10 hit points each. So every time the squad takes 10 hit points worth of damage, you get rid of a troop. And when your troop size drops from a 3x3 square to a 2x2 square, then the damage goes from, like, say 3d8 down to 2d8. So it's that simple. But if you then scale it out to a platoon that fits a 50-foot space instead of a 10-foot space, then that's going to be doing d8 times 10 damage, or 10d8 damage if you wanted. Because you have a facing of 10 5-foot squares and you have a line of scrimmage, you can only do 10d8 damage because you only have 10 creatures that are basically facing the line. And then if it's filled with 100 troops in that 50 by 50 square, it essentially has basically 100 hit points, right? So every time you lose a hit point, you scrap a character off. You take a character out of your pile until it starts to whittle down to the point where it's like a 15 by 15 foot space again, doing 3d8 instead of 10d8. So you can whittle your squads down that way. But a platoon has a higher command die DC than a 15-foot platoon. Like a 15-foot platoon, 3x3 would have, like, your command die, instead of your proficiency bonus, would be added to your command stat, like your charisma or your strength or whatever stat it is that you use to lead people with. You add that to your command die, which is a D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, pacing with your proficiency modifier. And as long as your proficiency die is hitting your command DC, then you can automatically command your troops to attack again. If a fighter has 3 attacks per round at 11th level, then if you're only commanding a squad of 15, like a 3x3 square of troops, the command DC is only a 3. So at 11th level, you've got a D4, D6, D8. You're rolling a D8. So as long as you're rolling 3 or above on your D8, you can make 3 attacks per round. But if you fuck up and you roll a 1 or a 2, then you have to spend an action to reorganize, like to regain morale, so that your troops can reorganize and attack as a squad again. So you can either burn a reaction, a bonus action, or an extra attack to reset your team. So if you're hitting your dice right, attack, attack, attack. If your dice are shitting on you, attack, bonus action, reset, attack, reaction, reset, attack again. I'm still getting my action economy out of it. The larger your troop, a 50 by 50 squad, a 50 by 50 platoon, 50 feet is a 10 by 10. So the DC is now 10. So that almost, like a first level character commanding a platoon of 50, like 100 troops in a 50 by 50 square, only rolls a D4. He is guaranteed to fail his command check every time. But he only has 1 attack per round. So you make your attack. You can either use your reaction or your bonus action to reset your team. But then now you're out of action economy. So you can't command that squadron to attack anymore. But presumably, you're facing another platoon of, like, say, 60 draconic warriors that are also dealing out shitloads of damage, that you can either take damage for your squad to prevent losing troops too quickly, you can pluck off individual troops, showing attrition of your troop size, or you can directly damage your squadron as a creature. So you have those 3 modes where you can keep your troop alive, or slowly dig away at the line of scrimmage and kill off your troops as they move forward through the ranks. That's like the core idea of how it works. And I've never seen anyone do anything like that. But once you get all the internal mechanics of it figured out like that, the narrative itself is basically applies itself, and all the math is self-reinforcing by tier. So by the time you get up to the 17th level, you can be commanding the blood like as if anyone would seriously want to play an Illrigger. But if you did at 17th level, that Illrigger could legitimately be leading an entire leg of the blood war against demons in Tartarus. So, but that's the power of command scaling. So, but it'll take a while. And Dragonlance right now is the best adventure to be able to illustrate how that system works, because it's a book that's supposedly about warfare. So let's build something that actually deals with warfare and show you through Wizards' ideas, like Wizards' narratives, how these mechanics work. And then we can do it a step further. It's like, well, let's do this with Descent into Avernus now, using vehicles and troops, and our command mechanics for establishing defenses and intelligent networks inside of our city that we're trying to defend against the Blood War to begin with. And as your characters accumulate power, you eventually can create your own faction in the Blood War to defend your realm while you try to figure out how to get the fuck out of there. So, is this? I've been using this purple color. Is this? My gut's telling me that it's working out, but you guys see color, I don't. So, is the coloration that I got going on here? Is this all jiving with you guys? I'm inclined to say yes, but I'm also inclined to decrease the opacity down a little bit. There. Oh, where one DM runs one side of the field and another DM runs the other side of the field? Absolutely, you could do that. Yeah, I see what you're asking now. Yeah, legit. If I were to do that, I would build out the Slomnia side first, like the intended player-facing side, and then like as an expansion set, I could do like in command of Takhisis, like in command of the Dragon Army, like that would be the name of it. In command of blank is how I brand these things. So it's how I intend to brand them anyway. But yeah, fun stuff. Fun fucking stuff. So many things you can do with it if the tools exist. And as far as I know, no one really, looks at 5e that way. I thought Essence 20 might do that, since they have like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Power Rangers dealing like with these mega structures and mega creatures and mega robots, but no. But all this stuff works for Transformers and Power Rangers just as easily. And Essence 20 actually uses the proficiency die for their characters. It's their native skill mechanic is not proficiency bonuses, but proficiency dice, which I didn't know when I started building this system. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's one of the options in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So when I go and I build new mechanical systems, what I tend to do is to open up the DMsGuild, the Dungeon Master's Guide for all the weird variables that are in there, to see what are some ideas that they knew existed but decided not to go with, and let's see if we built a game around that mechanic, what do we come up with? And that's kind of like the Renown or the Piety system, which they used in both Theros and Ravnica, but labeled it differently. That's a great example of them recognizing their own optional rule sets having different applications. I just took it like 5 steps further. But it's all hinging off of the stuff that they've already published, right? Which is why I have that whole give unto Caesar what is Caesar's mentality. It's like, I just think it's dishonest for me to, I don't know, to try to claim like these are my own things when they were all inspired by the D&D IP, what Wizards has control of. It just feels like the right thing to do. Probably because karma is a massive bitch, and if I don't approach this from a point of honor and integrity, then I can't expect to have any kind of integrity or honor served unto me in the future either, when I'll potentially need it. So, but that also goes into the, like, why, you know, I share all my content for free. So there's no reason to pirate my shit. Why would you pirate my shit if you can just go grab it off the DMsGuild and look at it at no cost? And then decide for yourself if you want to buy it, you know? It's like super easy. Tap this stuff down. Actually, I'm actually going to increase the strength of my erase to 40% instead of 20. Just stab at this a little bit more effectively. Speed up that process a little bit. But yeah, I am in serious ramble mode right now. This is my last 20-minute burst. It is 9:40 here in Seattle, and I'm going to be back on in about 8. By the time we finish stream, I'll have 8 hours before I'm back on in the morning doing Spelljammer art. So I'll at the end of this 20-minute burst, we'll log out, and then I'll be prepping more tokens for artwork tomorrow morning. So anyone that's hanging out, if you haven't liked and subscribed, be welcome to do so, and check out all the other streams that I do, all the other work that I'm building here. All of this is eventually leading me into probably doing Kickstarter campaigns for funding these things in advance. If I can build up enough of an audience and maybe even get like an email list going or something, and evolve into doing Kickstarters, I could potentially get paid up front to produce this work. Quit my day job, stream 8 hours a day, and kick through this content and not have a day job that eats 50 hours of my week, and devote all of that to doing more artwork like this and more design work, and maybe even hire somebody to help sidekick with me full time. Get a bookkeeper, start organizing and like doing a production pipeline for converting all the artwork that I do into stock art imagery so I can sell that as a second line. And then the books that I create out of this stuff, get the Kickstarter to fund it up front, get the stream going so I can get monetized when I actually build it on stream. Get paid for the books once they publish, and then convert all the artwork into stock art so I can sell them as a second product that could be bundled with the actual book that the art came from. So it sounds like a good piece of machinery, but that's a lot of fucking work, like business work. And nothing kills creative spirit like turning it into a business. So I see what it could be, but boy, oh boy, am I wary to actually pull the trigger on that, because I made doing character art commissions a living for a year or so back in the day, and I fucking wanted to kill myself. I hate your character. I hate this idea, but you're willing to pay me $200 for it? Okay, I'll do it. I hate you, but I'll do it. I don't ever want to have that conversation. I'm in love with this. Absolutely in love with this idea. I want to do this. You can't stop me. Thank you for offering me money. Like, that's the place I want to get to. And I'm not even 50 yet. So God's willing, I'll have 30 years to build that into something that'll keep me from wanting to kill myself as I get old. Basically, isn't that the dream? Give yourself a reason to stay alive just a little bit longer. That's what we're all trying to do. I'm just trying to figure out a way to stay on the board. Just stay on the board. Keep playing. Don't opt out yet. You don't need to recycle yourself. If you just stay loose and spry, you can get where the nation is going. You can get where society is moving. You can see what humanity is becoming, and if you can be on board with it and supportive of it, then you can let your heart replenish yourself instead of having to recycle your body. But that is the Ascension dream. Thanks, Dreams. That's really kind. That's really, really kind of you. Thank you. I mean, every content producer has people that resonate with their stuff. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take to find enough people to find what you're doing, to jive with you, to be able to build it out into something that people will just casually support. It's not like, it's not like anyone has to brand a W, like brand a Y into their chest to be on board with any of this stuff. It just has to be cool enough to throw a coffee at, you know? But that's where we get to in time. God, I like how that looks, huh? The power of texture. Texture power. Nice and gritty. Nice, and that's what we wanted. We just wanted ground grit. I'm gonna grit out this area here, and then we'll push ourselves further into the area to just put some clumps in here and there, and then we'll officially be done with our ground and foliage, so we can start working on roofs on Monday. And I'll be doing Spelljammer token art tomorrow morning. If Ukulele Bard gives me a confirmation of what book cover design he wants me to develop, if I have that confirmation tomorrow, then I'll work on Ukulele's book cover tomorrow on Saturday morning. So we'll do some Saturday morning Bob Ross artwork is basically what we'll end up doing. And but if not, then we'll probably just do more token stuff, or maybe ship stuff, or I don't know what we'll do. We'll do something. Saturday's kind of an open variable. But that book cover shouldn't take me probably more than 10 hours to finish. So and he doesn't need it until the end of July. So I'm going to be, it is going to be my Saturday task once I get the green light from him with which design to go with until it's done. Just because it's a nice palette cleanser over the weekend, you know, to take a break from my normal workload during the week and just to have some fun. Because I fucking love doing landscape art. It's so relaxing, and it's the organics and nature of it is so loose that you don't have to worry about, as long as your perspective is good and your color saturation stays appropriate for the depth of the image that you're in. It's just intuition. It's just 100% following your heart of where you think might look cool to have a little something here, like a squirrel have a little friend over in this area or whatever. Whatever Bob Rossi memes I want to throw into my microphone, I'll be able to joke about with you guys all morning. But that's the dream, you know. And just a heads up, I apparently have a family reunion that's happening in June, at the end of the month. I'll be flying away from here for a week on the I want to say the 22nd is our flight, and then I should be back. I should be back in the saddle by the following Wednesday. So I'll have a week off at the end of the month, which will also be just a fantastic palette cleanser. Uh-oh, I just locked up. There. There we go. Just like that. No one's screaming at me, so I'm guessing this purple is actually working out. It's always a risk, but it fades in enough, and I think the green, the general green patching on the ground, which is, you know, it's see how the green is pushed up here, but it falls behind here. It's very complementary. Like, it makes for, like, purple actually does make for a really good shadow effect for greenage. And since I'm really erasing down the purpliness of this a lot, I think it's blending in with the green haze to actually produce the effect that I imagined that it would. No one's screaming at me about it yet, so that's a good indication that I'm actually on the right path. So, or maybe you guys are just too courteous to tell me that I'm fucking up. Be bold. If you see Phil doing something stupid, always question it, because sometimes sometimes I just make a mistake. But that's what Boss would call a happy accident. Sometimes it just works out. But yeah, that grit looks, I'm pretty happy with that. Like that, now you can see like those patches of green that we started with. This is how we started. And now here's all the grit that we've added in to provide texture for this place. And then we have the tree canopies on top of them. Let's get rid of the grid so you can appreciate what we built here. See? Fucking cool, man. Fucking cool. I think she's pretty. I think she's very, very pretty. All right, so we are going to take a moment here. Let's grab a different. Let's see if there's a different brush for me to grab since we still have a little bit of time left. Here's my corn husk brush, which I often use for like flower tops, but it's not appropriate right now. And here's the leafy vine that I built, which is fun because I can chain those together by doing things like this. The only problem with it is that it's not. I don't have a symmetrical version of it. I need to make a symmetrical version of it so I can flip back and forth with. But as far as I know, there are no tools inside of Photoshop that lets you just invert the brush. That's something that needs to be improved. But that's some fun stuff. I use that in like thick foliage and jungles a lot, but it's not appropriate here either. The quest continues, my friends. Let's try this fractal brush just to see if it does something for us. That's a fractal brush. I basically, yeah. It's a self-replicating pattern. This is this, and then I flipped it. So this is also this. You can see that recurring, right? It's a fractal. So it comes in. I sometimes use this for magical effects. Sometimes it's appropriate for forests. I question if it's going to be relevant here or not, but I didn't want to just say no to it without at least trying it first. Here's a clump. Are you not? Oh my God, you're not on a spin. All right, let's put you on a spin. Brush. Wait. Brush settings. Click and begin. Brush settings. Projection. All right, let's see if this does what I want it to do. Not happy with that. I'm gonna grab, yeah, an off green. That feels right. You're popular in the professional GM community. That will help. Oh, that's really kind of you. Thank you. I don't expect anything, but it's sweet of you to even consider it. I gotta say this Eberron, all the Eberron adventures that I will be building eventually. God willing, I can build a production pipeline for them, but Eberron specifically, I'm building for replayability, for a professional DM to replay. I mean, players will probably only play it once, but building an adventure that a DM like wants to be able to approach from a different direction, or like use different plot hooks and variables. And to like choose a different path to get from the beginning to the end, or to start at different points. Like there's a shitload of replayability in there. But that's I don't know much about professional DMing, but I do know that when you have a new group, having something that you're really comfortable with, that you can kind of just like cruise control with, and just be spontaneous with, is a really great way to introduce a new team if they're looking to sponsor a DM to give them an adventure. Something like this, having high replayability, if a professional DM likes the narrative and the assets that go along with it, can be something that can be used over and over again in different ways, and it can curve from like level 6 to 9. So ideally 7th and 8th level. So there's a lot of ways to insert it into the adventure. So I'm just going to use this same eraser that I used before, so that there's some commonality. Even though I'm using a different brush type to lay in the grit, I'm using the same eraser to get rid of it, so that there's some intuitive commonality. It might not be obvious when you look at it, but the language is technically the same. And the human mind, being aware of more variables than what we know we're looking at, should be able to grok in. That's what. God, that really faded in nicely. Oh, that faded in nicely. All right, let's just keep doing that then. Let's tap in some of this. And it doesn't matter if I'm invading the floor space inside of the building, because I'm going to build a separate floor. I'm going to build a floor inside of each of these that goes over the grass. Theoretically, you could peel up the floorboards and crawl underneath the building if you really wanted to get clever about where Timmy hid from the monsters. But I don't think I'm going to go into that level of mechanical depth. It's just something that could happen. It's just some of the things you can do with Photoshop. Plus, I'll need to figure out how the Roll20 interface works with the DMsGuild, so I can load all these assets into Roll20 as I would do as I had done as a DM while I was playtesting this with different groups. So I can just transpose that stuff and push it out as assets ready to go for adventuring. So that. Look at that shit. Fucking A. Right choice, Kearney. I wasn't sure if the fractal brush was the right choice, but man, it is the right choice. And with that amount of erasing, it just kind of looks scraggly. I like that. I like that a lot. Man, happy, happy. Ooh, that's a good point. What I probably need to do is brush settings. I need to push spacing out so that when I tap, I don't have that swish. Let me get rid of that real quick. Take it back. There, see, I don't have that thick swishing anymore because I created enough space that with a quick tap. The way that spacing works is, here, I'll show you an open space here. See, that's how spacing works. That means I have to keep my brush down that long for it to recognize another tap signal. So when I'm stippling, by having a really wide breadth in spacing here, that allows me to stipple and to guarantee I'm only going to have one instance of pixels being added to the page space. Which, depending on what effects you're trying to achieve, is important for you to be thinking about. Just some good grit. Yeah. I'm going to turn that off. It's almost 10. I'm going to have to go here in a few minutes. Fucking A. I love doing this shit. It's, I never know when I start streaming whether I'm going to be exhausted or completely energized at the hour mark. And when I'm energized, I can go for 6-7 hours on a stream. But if I'm exhausted, then I have to essentially stop as soon as I finally get a breaking point. But I never know which one I'm going to have, so I have these 2-hour bursts, which is something I know I can guarantee I can get through. And so I can have that consistency in presentation. But sometimes I just find a really strong wind, and it carries me through. And at times like this, it's like I'm absolutely in love with the work. Conversations are good. It's a lot of fun. It's just energizing, you know? Oh, God, that grit is so good. God, that's fucking fun. Super casual. Not much. Whoa. I see some text happening. Give me a second here to be content with my stippling, and then I'll shove my face down in the corner of the screen and see what's going on. Excellent. I'm particularly proud of this entire adventure. It's fucking cool. Again, we'll be building a floor for each one of these buildings, so it doesn't matter how much scraggle I have underneath it. This is going to get covered over by floorboards. Well, except for the stables. I'm going to have a sawdust floor. So we'll have an opportunity to build out a sandy sort of grit, different texture. And after the undead attack, there's ghouls that are in these stables eating horses. And so if you stumble upon it and you make noise and you get jumped by like D6 ghouls or whatever, like D4 plus 2 ghouls, I don't remember what variable we settled on, but after the zombie attack, each of these places has dangers. It's like you can show up in the town, everything's fine, and then either the first night or whatever night is convenient to the DM, undead shuffle in from the forest and start killing people. So, and once that's happened, like if the team is out in the forest, when that happens, they'll come back to the village and everyone will be dead. You can also start the adventure with the zombies having already attacked and present, so that the threat is immediate and obvious, and that the tracks of the undead are obviously coming from the forest, thus leading the characters by the nose, railroad style, into the forest, because it's the obvious path to go next. It's not railroading if it's obvious, it's just good narrative. I think the difference between railroading and good narrative is shitty DMing. Like, if you're a good DM, you can railroad your team all day because they're going to always think that the decision that they made is theirs when you already have it scripted on your page. But if you have, like, the four most common options, they're most likely going to fall somewhere inside of those four options. So if you're just covering your variables and offering smart solutions and fun options for each path they could choose to take, that is not railroading. That's just Jacques your dungeon, you know? Like, create variable paths of different challenges that lead you to the same end result, which is the finale of the adventure. So it's when you can actively see the DM pulling the levers and making and shifting gears between different encounters and narrative moments. That's when you get accused of railroading, because you're not good enough as a DM yet to disguise the cards that you're flipping. You know, like they see the flop. You know, they see the river. They see these cards playing out, but a good DM just has these things happen without you seeing them actually playing the cards. If that analogy makes any sense. So a good DM is constantly railroading their team into whichever decision they decided to go with, that you as a good DM have already anticipated. But that just requires a lot of experience and seeing variables and just knowing how small team tactics work. Like if you have a good idea of how a team is going to respond to a threat, then setting them up to get abused by the more likely result isn't railroading. It's good. That's called stacking encounters. So you can move from 3 rounds of combat to another 3 rounds of combat to another 3 rounds of combat. D&D is built assuming that there's 8 challenges per day and each combat typically lasting, say, 3 rounds. That's 24 rounds of combat per long rest that are anticipated. But if you use a trap, that removes 3 rounds of combat. And if you use a social encounter, that also removes 3 rounds of combat. So if you have 3 traps, you've now whittled your team down to only needing 15 rounds of combat that day. If you add in a complicated investigation and an interrogation, that whittles you down to only needing 9 rounds of combat. And if you're breaking up your chunks of space, like you could have a 10-round combat, but if it comes at you in 3 waves, that's just 3 stacked adventures that are hitting you at the same time. So the real trick in preventing burnout in combat is to keep a lot of variety. Change the environment, change the enemies, change the goal, change the threats. Those are 4 dials you can turn to recalibrate the combat that they're currently in the middle of. So, I mean, this is just, basic DM philosophy. But you have to be able to, you have to have a shitload of hours of experience of actually DMing it's like specifically observing that mentality, or having so much experience as a DM that you can easily back reference in memory how those things accidentally occurred, that you can then become more active in proactively integrating into your narrative experiences as a DM. And that's what ends up making you a really good DM, because the players always feel in control. They're constantly being hit with new variables, so they don't burn out on anything specifically. And the variety of challenges that, if you're helping sculpt what their characters are, you're able to build in flaws and advantages into the game environment that their characters can naturally take advantage of. So, like in the time travel campaign that I run, our druid has the dream circle, and the bonfire ability is once you set a bonfire, you can use a short rest to teleport your team to that location. In the time travel adventure that I built, knowing that our druid is dream circle, I created a ritual that basically converted the bonfire ritual into an anchor point, where when your day resets, if you die or you go to sleep, when you wake up at your bonfire instead of back at the bar hungover. If you scuttle your bonfire and destroy your anchor point, then you automatically default back to the bar hungover. Like, we do not want to be hungover today. So let's anchor ourselves somewhere here in the forest near the dungeon that we want to explore and have plenty of time to do it. We won't have a headache when we wake up, and we'll be right outside the door, so we don't lose any of our day getting to that location while we're doing our groundhog adventure. But that's me leaning into the character features and creating new uses for those features. That now our druid, if she ever plays another dream druid again, she's always going to look back. It's like, this dream druid is cool, but God, that time travel adventure was amazing, because every time I set an anchor point, every time I used my bonfire, we created a new anchor point. It was like Dark Souls. You know, like you're creating new bonfire points. Super fucking fun. I gotta say that I would very much like to build the Groundhog Day campaign into a toolkit for sale someday. It's in the Eberron setting. It's in Allendare. It's where it takes place. I don't know if I think that would be something I would put out outside of DMsGuild. It doesn't need to be Eberron. I don't use any. I even changed all the names so they wouldn't figure out that it was Eberron. I didn't want them to know it was an Eberron until they, as players, figured out for themselves that it was an Eberron, and they eventually did. So we all know we're in Eberron now. But I changed all the names so that it wouldn't be recognizable. And it's only a 40-mile block of area in a forest. So there's not a lot of external landmarks. I could legitimately make that a non-DMsGuild product. But we're at 18th level now. We started at first level. They went through the first 3 sessions just doing Scooby-Doo exploration over the course of one day. And at the end of that day, I got them. They ran into the book of knowledge that bound them into the time loop. And so every day that they've had has always been that exact same day. They always wake up in the bar to hunt over. They're always in the same town again until they set an anchor point with a bonfire to be someplace else. But when we did our session 0, I asked them, what kind of a campaign do you want to run? And they're all of them are brand new. They've never played D&D before, so they didn't even really understand the question. So I started outlining it for them. It's like, what's your aversity to risk? Like, are you okay with these characters being killed and you having to replace them? What's your thoughts about that? Are you going to be okay with that? And they all just unanimously agreed, we don't want these characters dying. It's like, so I can't kill you from level 1 to 20. I can never kill you. Like, if you don't have to, we don't want to. We want to see our character go from level 1 to 20 in a full campaign. Can you do that? And so I was like, let me figure it out. And that's when I came up with a time loop Groundhog campaign, because technically I can kill them as much as I want, and they just reset. And it's the same character, and their experiences being killed over and over again is giving them levels. So I was able to cheat the system given the variables that they provided to me. So one of the other variables that they said is like, what kind of we have the option of multi-classing or not multi-classing, feats, no feats, core books only or expansions. And they all unanimously decided, we don't know what we're doing and there's so many options. Why don't you build our characters? And why don't you level our characters up for us? So I, as a DM, since level 1, have been in charge of what spells they have prepared, know, and memorize, what magic items they have, what feats they have. So the entire campaign has been, every time, I build my challenges around the things I know they can't do. I've never given them a teleport spell. The only way they can they have Misty Hop. The rogue has Misty Hop. And the druid has the bonfire. But that's the only teleportations they have. They don't have a fly spell. If they want to fly, they have to conjure animals. They have to conjure beasts that can, like griffins, that can actually fly. And they have to get on the griffins and fly. And then they get attacked by creatures because they're giant snacks that are flying through the sky. So they know there's a huge risk. If they want to make fast movement over ground, they know there's a big risk that one of them could get knocked off the bird, drop, and immediately die. Unless it's the rogue, because he can save himself with a Misty Hop to get back onto his horse, onto his griffin. But all the challenge, I had a challenge where they had to fight a crab underwater, and they were dying because they were running out of oxygen trying to get to the crab. And when the crab would grab them and would squeeze them with a pincer, it would push all the air out, and they would immediately start they'd start taking exhaustion levels until they died. So they got killed by this giant crab over and over again. But by the time they defeated it and gained the level, I then gave the druid water breathing. So now it was easy for them to go attack that crab and kill it anytime they needed to go down into the sewer levels. So it's a very Metroid Castlevania design, but it's only possible because I, as a DM, have complete control over what utilities, options, and resources are available to them at a time. So that's a really fucking fun way to play D&D. And I've never seen that anywhere. So as far as I know, it's a pretty original idea. So I should build it out into something that people can use. That's going to require a toolkit and I should theoretically use this campaign that I've ran as like the proof of concept demonstration. But that means I have to build out a 20 level campaign, which will probably be like a 500 page document, which is fucking insane. So if I can accumulate a large enough following that I can be successful with Kickstarters, I will build that. And I'll have the pre-built characters, and I'll show what their level up is and what they should gain depending on which challenges they beated. And it's a milestone campaign, so when they defeat the crab, they gain a level. And you don't give them the crab until they're a high enough level to gain water breathing. So after 5th level, they can start fighting the crab. I just position the crab so they can't get to it prior to 5th level. So by the time they get to the crab and they defeat it, then by like level 6 or 7, and they finally get to defeating the crab, they could easily have water breathing. But that challenge would have been trivial if they could have chosen to learn water breathing that day on their own. Wow, what a great way to trivialize the challenge. But they asked me to control that. They didn't realize what that meant. And I didn't even realize what that meant when I first did it. But once I started getting into designing the campaign and looking at what the characters would be able to do, that's when it kind of clicked together. Oh, I can do this. This is something that can be done. And I've been running this campaign with them we're on our 4th year now. And it's really just changed my approach and mentality about how is a campaign supposed to be structured? What can you and can't you, what is healthy for a campaign? It really helped redefine. I came from 3rd edition where we ran Gestalt games where build whatever you want, the DM will figure out how to DM it. And that's how we trained each other to become really good DMs from basically year 2000 through 2010. We had a group of 5 players, and we all would take turns DMing, and we build the most abusive characters we could potentially build in 3rd edition, which is incredibly abusive characters. And we figured out ways to be able to continuously challenge those characters anywhere from level 1 to 32. That was the gamut that we ran as Gestalt characters. So once we figured all that stuff out, 5e's been basically a cakewalk. It's like once you can operate at that level and challenge characters of that magnitude of power, and be able to present it in a fun narrative way, then 5e's is like a fucking breeze. But it took me 12 years as a DM playing Beckme in 2nd edition, evolving into 3rd edition, playing a number of other different other types of games like Gamma World, Shadowrun, Rifts, Call of Cthulhu, GURP System. Those are the only ones I can think of offhand. I know there was Hole. I played fucking Hole. World of Darkness. I was into Apocalypse for a while. So I had a pretty broad swath of different combat of different role playing systems to be able to learn lessons from, and it all just kind of congealed in 5e. So anyway, I'm really rambling, and oh my god, it's 10:15. So I really need to pull the plug and get some fucking sleep so I can not be a zombie tomorrow. So I think I'm going to hit the save button here, catch up on any comments. Gestalt. I could have conversations with you about Gestalt. The time travel campaign I'm playing is a subclass Gestalt. They only have one class. Like the druid is only druid. The rogue is only rogue. The ranger is only a ranger. We had a paladin, but he had to drop out. So there's only 3 of us now. But each of them have 3 subclasses. So the druid has the dream, circle, and land. And land is underground and forest because that's where they spend most of their time. And then so they have 3 subclasses, which means they have that druid has 12 subclasses that I can space out over 20 levels. So I can, once I hit 3rd level, I only have 18 levels left, right? So 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then 6th, 7th, 8th, and then 9th, 10th, 11th, and then 12th, 13th, 14th, and they cap out. And then they have their high level magic to be able to flesh out the back end of their stack. The ranger has Horizon Walker, Beast Companion, and Gloomstalker. Those are the 3 that he has. So like his animal companion is a spirit fish, so it can interact in the spirit world, and it has incorporeality, so it can move through walls and scout for them through different dungeons and areas. But if they encounter any spirit creatures, he has to take damage for the spirit fish, or it dies in one hit. So as long as he's taking damage, I can attack his ranger on the spirit realm, and the druid can operate with spells on the spirit realm too. So they're constantly being attacked by poltergeists, like incorporeal, undead, demonic forces, and psychic attacks, because they have characters that can interact on the ethereal plane that way. And then our rogue is assassin, master thief, and arcane trickster. And the arcane trickster and the rogue and the ranger are both using my martial power system to add on to the spell list. So they've been playtesting that with me for the past year. Anyway, I gotta go. But yeah, that's one way to do Gestalt. Another way is to do like the traditional 2-level advancement. There's a number of different ways to do it. I'm happy to talk shop with you about that if your friend gets serious about running or that, because Gestalt's fucking amazing. Anyway, I'm out. That's it for today. I'm gonna be back in 7.5 hours, so I'm gonna go try to grab some sleep and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed tomorrow morning for us to do some more token art. We'll be finishing up Volkath the Arcane Merchant, and possibly working on the Elven Pilot. So I'm not sure. But anyway, that's it. I got to go. I love you guys. Thanks a lot for everybody hanging out with me tonight. Tonight has been a blast. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys. If there's any lurkers out there, still like and subscribe. I'd love your support. Check out my books. If you think they're cool, buy some. But honestly, just subscribing to help me get to 1,000 count, so I can start monetizing every time I log on and get paid a couple bucks to do artwork. That's basically some stock art. So shilling over. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you on the other side. Laters.